5 o'clock on Monday, May 16, 2022, the Goldsboro City Council work session is called to order. Madam Clerk, if you will call the roll, please.
Mayor Ham,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak,
Present.
Councilwoman Jones, here. Councilman Broadway,
Here.
Councilwoman Matthews, present. Councilman Gaylor,
Present.
Councilman Aycock.
Here. Okay, we're all here. Next thing on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I would like to make a proposed change to the agenda that we undertake the new business first and come back to the old business because we have some visitors here tonight that participates in or will be participating in the budget presentation, so we can complete that portion and they can get out of here and get back to their home station there. So that's my, well, one other thing, if time permits, I'd also like for us to do the consent agenda during the work session. So that's my proposed changes. Is there any others? Any other changes?
Mayor, just to inform, I do have a closed session on it tonight.
You have closed session items?
Yes, sir. Just one. Yes, sir. Personnel matter.
Personnel matter for closed session?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any other items for closed session? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented with changes.
Make a motion to accept the agenda with the proposed changes.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Nothing. We have a consensus here, so good. Okay, let's go right into the new business. Mr. Salmon.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present the FY 22-23 Manager's Recommended Budget. Before I begin, I want to thank the CPA consultants from the Isley team and city staff for helping me to develop this budget. We have here sitting to my right, Ms. Beverly Stroud. She's the Managing Director for the Rural Government Services Division. She's a CPA with over 26 years of experience in accounting and most recently served as a finance officer for Greene County. We have Pamela Wortham. She's a CPA, most recently the finance director for the town of Garner. She's also been Deputy Treasurer of Finance Operations, North Carolina Department of State Treasurer, and Assistant State Auditor, Office of the State Auditor. Not with us this evening from the Isley team is Clayton Murphy. He has over 37 years of experience in government accounting and reporting. He worked 20 years at the North Carolina Office of State Controller and 10 years at the Local Government Commission. Also like to thank Finance Director Catherine Gwynn here. She has very much enabled this process and been involved significantly along with the Finance Department, providing revenue estimates, financial advice, and enabling the use of databases. Each department head briefed their requests, and then they came back and we told them what the cuts we thought should be, and they helped me work through those cuts to make sure we had the best possible presentation for you this evening. So I look forward to getting into that. Okay. The summary of the FY 22-23 budget. The budget has increased 11.4% this year, almost $8 million, and that's significant. But much of that is due to the 20% utility rate increase, which is roughly about half of that amount. And then you've also got ARPA funding. I'm recommending we include $3 million of ARPA funding in the general fund this year. And so you can see those percentages change. In the green area on the left is your utility fund, and that has increased by 2% overall, and the general fund has decreased by 2% overall, even though it's increased. The stormwater fund increases by about $300,000, and the occupancy tax by about $100,000. This is the way the budget breaks out by area or category, if you will. We've got salary and benefits are roughly 45% of our expenditures. Operational costs are nearly 30%. Vehicle capital outlay, a little over 11%. Debt service, 10%. And transferred services from the utility fund to the general fund, about 4.5%. You can see in the categories there, under the salary and benefits, the general fund is your primary cost driver, about 83% of all salaries and wages and 56% of your operational costs. Your capital and vehicle outlay involves a $2.4 million vehicle loan as part of the overall $8.7 million investment. Your general fund debt payments include vehicle loans of $1.3 million, W.A. Foster and Goldsboro Event Center for about $540,000. The Paramount and City Hall is $290,000. General obligation bond payments, $884,000. Police evidence room and fire station renovation, $500,000. Utility fund debt payments include $1.6 million in state loans, $1 million in GO bonds, and advanced metering infrastructure project of $426,000. These are the major expenditure drivers in the general fund, stormwater fund, and utility fund. And I've got some more details later on this, but I'll get into it a little bit here. The fire truck is a main driver of the general fund. We probably need to replace a fire truck every 3 to 4 years. If you figure you have 9 vehicles that last 25, 27 years, we should be doing it every 3 to 4 years. Right now, the last time we bought a fire truck was in 2018. So if we buy it this year and you get it in 23, that's a 5 years. And with the delays in producing manufacturing of equipment, it might be 2024 before we see this. So I'm recommending we buy a fire truck, a Quint right now, which is an aerial device, pumper. It puts out, it's the next biggest thing we need here. And I think we should buy it this year, or at least put it in the budget and hopefully get it. Public Works, heavy equipment, there's 3 pieces of equipment there. We have 2 garbage trucks, and let's see what the other piece is there. I'll get to that in a later slide. The telephone system needs to be replaced. It's hard to believe nowadays that you need to replace the telephone system, but the IT director tells me that it's essential. We can't get the parts to replace it anymore. So that's in the budget. An HVAC boiler for public safety complex is a necessary replacement. Stormwater fund includes a sweeper, street sweeper. We have 3 right now. One is 2004, always broke. We have 2 crews. We think we need to have another sweeper in order to optimally operate within the stormwater requirements. Utility fund, major expenditures, $5 million. Last year, council approved basically $2 million of above-ground infrastructure in ARPA funding. That is yet to be spent as we were waiting on final guidance for that, so we are including that in this year's budget. Also, a transfer to capital reserve for future water plant fund, $1.4 million. Future water plant, we've had estimates of upwards of $80 to $90 million, so this is but a start, but I think an important start going forward, and we will know more when we get the water treatment plant study done in June. We have elevated tank management maintenance contract every year for roughly $490,000, and a Public Works maintenance is requesting a jet rotor in order to clean our sewer lines. Additional drivers are salary costs. I included in the budget 3% cost of living adjustment. You can see that's going to cost us about $860,000. A 1% merit increase effective January 1st, $143,000. And $300 in holiday pay, prorated for permanent part-time, $183,000. Fuel costs, as you know, are going up significantly. We estimate that's going to cost us over $1 million more in FY23. Benefit costs have increased, 13% for health insurance, 14% for retirements. That's roughly $750,000. And last year we didn't budget for street resurfacing, but this year we thought we needed to start doing some street resurfacing again for $500,000. We probably should be budgeting $1.5 million or more per year, but given some of the funding constraints, this is the best we did in the manager's proposed budget. Revenue enhancement, sales tax distributions. We've increased $1.4 million based off of North Carolina League of Municipalities recommendation or estimate of a 15% increase. ARPA funds, as I mentioned earlier, recommending put $3.1 million in the general fund. The remaining $1.4 million from this second tranche would be reserved to be spent in FY24. Property taxes are estimated to increase very little, $128,000. Parks and Rec fees will be increased. We discussed green fee increases on Fridays to a weekend rate, which should generate $40,000. When council approved the rates that the Parks and Rec director brought to you a few weeks ago, that has not been included in this budget. So that's an estimated $35,000 to $40,000 that might also be included in this budget. Solid waste fees were increased 12% to pay for the increased fuel cost and new equipment that we discussed briefly a minute ago. That will roll up to about $500,000. Water and sewer rates are increased 20% as previously determined by council. That would raise $3.4 million directly for identified capital operations and maintenance costs. These are the general fund revenues previously discussed. Just wanted to give you numbers in a spreadsheet here. You can see the overall percentages. And the total estimated increase at the bottom. Capital outlay requests that were discussed. Council chambers, you're all sitting spread out here due to COVID. I understand that council would be interested in making the dais a little bit wider. So that has been put in the budget here for $8,000. We can do that remodeling if council so determines. I discussed with the earlier driver for the fire department was that Quint fire truck, 1.1 million, but they should also be getting a F-250 vehicle and a skid unit which gets put in the back of an F-350, which allows them to do brush fires. Last time we had a brush fire and we sent out an old brush fire truck, it broke in the middle of the fire, so we don't want that to happen again. Information technology system I previously mentioned, and they have increased manpower at 4 additional people, so in order to get them where they need to work, we're purchasing a Ford Bronco. Parks and Recreation will be replastering the pool at W.A. Foster for $70,000. Tennis courts are cracked out at Herman Park, and so those cracks will be repaired for $55,000. And the golf course is asking for an irrigation system it's a computer system for about $30,000 that will allow them to irrigate the golf course in the middle of the night at optimal times for performance of the greens. Planning Department, $289,000 for Department of Transportation betterment agreements. These has to deal with the William Street sidewalks and also, let's see here. Yep, Central Heights Road realignment and sidewalks there. For the police department, we're buying them 3 vehicles, roughly $100,000. They need this computer-aided dispatch software to work with the county for $76,000. Some of the radios are obsolete and need to be replaced for $92,000. As I mentioned earlier, one of the more significant drivers is the HVAC system in the public safety complex for $180,000. Public Works is looking for 2 garbage trucks, and that other 3rd vehicle is the leaf vacuum truck for $720,000. And they're also asking for lifts in the garage for maintenance. And you can see at the bottom, the total was requested for 4.7, recommended is 3.4 million. Some of this will go into the debt that we discussed of $2 million for the vehicles. Additional capital outlay in the stormwater fund is for a street sweeper, $290,000. And then in the utility fund, we're looking for a jet rotter, $480,000. You can see the total roll-up of what was requested, what was recommended, and the total debt, almost $2.4 million for vehicles. This is additional capital outlays for the utility fund. What you see asterisks are FY22 approved original discussions on ARPA funding. So recommended is $5 million worth of investment, and $2 million of that investment would have been previously approved in the FY22 budget. One of the major systems that need to be replaced is the UV system you see on the bottom there for $1.7 million. That was not recommended this FY. I think we can get to that next FY or the FY after that, but it is a system that's over 20 years old and needs to be replaced. So plenty of work to do in public utilities, as you can see there. Authorized positions. We had requests for 12 additional positions, of which I recommend we don't approve any of them, unfortunately, due to budget constraints. What you see here is the recommended positions of 458. We would normally have 482 positions approved by council, but 24 of those are frozen. 20 positions in the police department are frozen. They have about 30 vacancies right now, so they'll be able to hopefully find 10 more officers in the near future. The fire department has 3 frozen positions and 1 street and maintenance position is frozen. We unfroze in the police department 1 position, which is for a, let's see, it was a civilian crime scene analyst, right? Crime analyst, Chief?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then in Parks and Rec Department, we are eliminating 1 position with the Recreation Superintendent, Russell Stevens, now as the Deputy Director for that department. And we've also unfrozen in the Public Utilities Department the Deputy Director position that has always been approved by council but not funded due to funding constraints. And now that you've increased the funding in that department, I believe we should fill that billet. Significant unfunded needs include the police department, has 20 positions that are currently frozen, we discussed. They have indicated the need for additional $500,000 or more to address longevity increases to remain competitive with other local departments. The fire department has 3 positions frozen, but is requesting additional salary of $192,000 to correct for salary compression and remain competitive with local departments. Both of these department salaries have been compared to departments benchmarked in the local area, but those additional increases remain unfunded at this period of time. Future considerations, ARPA funding is not a continuing revenue source. Obviously, that's going to go away in 2024 to 2026. I have reserved some funding to help us in 2024, but that is a concern going forward. Along with borrowing funds to replace aging equipment, optimally we'd do that as pay-as-you-go, but since we can't borrow other money at this point in time and we can borrow for vehicles, that's what we're doing. More funding is needed to address pavement conditions, as I mentioned. Water treatment plant replacement is to be determined. Hopefully this study in June will let us know how soon we need to do that. But I believe it is proper to put the money aside at this point in time because we know we're going to need one sooner than later. That treatment plant is 72 years old. The water reclamation facility expansion is to be determined depending on how much growth we have around here and how much I&I we experience. 6 months ago, the capacity at the water reclamation facility was near the 90% rule where we would have a moratorium and not be able to increase growth. We were near 88%, especially when adding the Mount Olive pickle. And now, due to the dry season and a lack of I&I, we're down into, I think, about 66%. So the metric is all over the place, quite frankly. But we know we have a problem, and we need to potentially include the expansion of that facility in the future if we want to grow. And all these costs are varying quite a bit now, as you can imagine, with the lack of supplies and the demand out there for public utilities and infrastructure. Next steps is we have to determine when council wants to have work sessions to go through the budget. We expect a public hearing for June 6th, adoption of the budget on June 20th, and published by June 30th. So I open for any questions, sir.
I'm going to address the, talking about the next scheduled working session at some point during this period.
Okay. I have our Isley team consultants here and a bunch of books and information. We can answer any immediate questions you might have, but this is primarily an opportunity just to provide you the information on what this budget looks like, let you think about it for a week or two, and come back as necessary to go through the details.
Any council members have any questions or issues that they want to speak to?
Tim, I'd like one question.
Yes, sir.
To get some idea, we haven't been incurring a great deal of debt in the last 2 or 3 years. How is our debt level going down? Years ago, we were told that we were getting our debt level was going down because we're not. But I hadn't seen any graphs
Yes, sir.
to give us an idea of what our, as we're paying off these items, what's our debt level?
The Davenport presentation we had, I believe during the council retreat, gave you a little bit of that information. We can perhaps provide some more of that information. As you may recall, our primary concern is fund balance. While the debt may be going down, we don't have enough money in fund balance, so we need to consider those concerns going
I'd
forward.
just like to see some correlation
All right.
between that, to give us some idea of what we can borrow.
Yes, sir.
And what we can't.
I know our debt service in general fell off 900,000 between FY '22 and '23, and FY '23 and '24, it's going to fall off about 700,000.
Okay.
So that's helpful for us in out-year budgeting.
Any other questions?
You know, my big concern is still, and I've stated it in the past, is, you know, the raise we give to our city employees, 3%, whenever inflation is much higher than that, they're fighting behind, and I don't know of any way we can address it. But, at some point, in speaking with the police chief before the meeting, Rocky Mount is giving their policemen a substantial raise because policemen are hard to find. I mean, we're 20-some down, correct, Chief?
32, sir.
32. And, if all the surrounding areas are going to keep raising their salaries, what's that going to do to us?
Right.
And it concerns me. We've got to be on it today. We can't wait until all of a sudden we're down 42, 43 policemen. We've got to address it now. This is something we can't wait for. And I don't know how we're going to get the money, where the money's going to come from. But, that and firemen, they're in short supply.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. The employees that left, the over 100 employees that left, where is their salary? Where is their money?
So I believe you would be talking about lapsed salaries, ma'am?
Yes.
So lapsed salaries would fall into fund balance eventually. So some of the way we've been able to build fund balance in FY '21 and '22 is lapsed salaries. But in the budget going forward, you can't count on lapsed salaries because you may fill all those positions.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't really know how that worked, but with lapsed salaries, if we had those employees' salaries, I just wanted to know where it was going and how it was being applied
So
and how we can use it.
it's going to fund balance right now. But for instance, for the police department, we froze 20 positions because he's missing over 30, right? So that helped, we didn't fund those positions. So that helped us be able to fund other things, whether it's operations, other people, but we couldn't find enough money to fund the additional positions or the additional from 3% COLA to 4% COLA, or the additional 500,000 for police or 200,000 for the fire department. So you've either got to reduce something else through this process, or you've got to increase revenue. Property taxes may be one way you want to increase revenue.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
And I know this may be unpopular, but I think to keep our employees retention is one of our major issues. And I know something that we had back in the day, longevity. I think that would encourage our employees to also stay with the department, because we're losing, as Mr. Aycock said, to surrounding counties. We're training the individuals. They're leaving with the resources we provide them here, and we spend money on these individuals, but yet they go to Kinston, which I'm hearing is getting an 18% increase across the board. Rocky Mount, as you stated, at one time Kinston was one of the lower paying, Lenoir County was one of the lower paying counties in the area, but now they're beating us. So I just want to see if we can put the variable of longevity in the equation to see if we can work something with since we can't bind a employee by a contract, but if we could incentivize increasing pay based on consistency and keeping certain employees, I would like to look at that as a variable also, if we could put that somehow in the equation.
We'll take a look at it, sir. I'm not sure we can get that figured out over the
Okay.
next month, but
Mr. Manager, I echo the sentiments of previous two council members who have spoken. The market is what the market is, and the market for professionals in law enforcement and professionals in fire is high. And the two first bullets under significant unfunded needs. I realize this means it's going to be taking it out of one pot, putting it in another, but I would be very interested in working to try and get into some of that number for existing employees in the name of retention, in the name of safety for our city. We need those things, and we need those people. We need them to feel valued and to be valued and to see that value. And I know that it's going to be difficult, but I really want to try to impact those first two bullets there.
so when I've talked to staff about that, one area you could go is you've got $500,000 in road pavement.
Yeah.
But that means you won't do $500,000 of road pavement from here on out, because
And
that's the
recurring
bill that
funds.
keeps on paying.
Right, it's recurring funds, and so I absolutely hear you. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow, but it is something that I, over the next month or so, will definitely be thinking about.
Yes, sir.
This is a lot of work, and I commend you and your staff and our firm. This is an impressive budget.
As far as the $500,000 for road improvements, prior to the bond issue that was in 2018, 19, somewhere along in there, it was a 3-year road building thing. We were always putting $500,000 in the budget, and still weren't catching up. That's the reason we had the bond issue.
Yes, sir.
But again, in talking with Chief West, Rocky Mount had in the last week, and I think I'm right on this, I try very seldom to watch local news or national news because it's depressing, but Rocky Mount had several shootings in 5 days. Is that correct? Yes. But if we had 5 deaths, we would be outraged. But yet they're seeing that they have to increase their salaries. Is it going to make it safer for them? Not immediately, no. But it's a start, and we got to start a start. We can't end it with 3% across the board. I mean, we just can't do that. In my opinion, that's my opinion. And I've always been told opinions are, well, never mind. We'll leave it at that.
I've spoken to some of my colleagues, and I think, without me being redundant, you've heard here of the interest in the projected or proposed salary increase not being sufficient. And so we will certainly talk about this at our next session. And by the way, I'd like to lead into talking about a planning date for a working session. We have some members of the council who do not work on Friday as a general rule, but the next 2 Fridays are pretty well taken up with activities, Friends of Seymour activity, and then Memorial Day and high school graduation, etc. I would like to suggest that in talking with the manager, that we look at maybe meeting one evening in a special session to talk about the budget. I believe our consultants here are available to meet with us, provide their information. I'm looking at the calendar here. This upcoming week, the 23rd, we have evenings that are pretty free, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then, of course, the following week, after Memorial Day, we have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I would It doesn't have to be an evening, it could be during the day. I'm just saying that was something that was discussed. I would hope that we could come up with a date before we leave this topic this evening.
Well, for our three colleagues that have full-time jobs, I mean, I think we have to be in consideration for
Right,
them.
absolutely.
You know, personally, I have no problem with meeting from 5 p.m. until whatever time. And I just don't want them to miss work. And
Right.
of course, they may like to miss work. I used to love to miss work. But
That's one reason why I was looking at a Friday. That would be two of them that do not normally work on, but certainly I'll let the council members speak.
I'm one of the ones that work, so
Yeah.
evenings would definitely work best for me, or a Friday.
I can come anytime. Just about.
Friday evening is fine for me.
Friday would be a good
Yeah,
time.
Friday. Yes, sir.
I'm flexible.
We have graduation, I'll be doing that for
You said
that.
Monday?
Bye. You said,
You said Monday the 23rd?
So we're looking at Friday evening, June 3rd?
no,
I cannot.
June 3rd,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a meeting that following Monday. So.
Because we talked about the 20th and the 27th, how busy those days were.
The
those
27th
Fridays.
is the high school graduation day,
Right,
and that's the Memorial Weekend also.
right.
Are y'all opposed to doing it during the week, in the evening?
I would rather do.
Yeah.
oh, no, I'm fine.
That 23rd date that the mayor mentioned?
That's a Monday, 23rd, evening of the 23rd.
Yes, sir. Sounds good.
Okay, we can cover that through the Isley
What
group.
time? 4 or 5? What
It
time?
needs to be at least 5.
5.
I can do it whenever. I'm fine. Flexible.
so you're talking about next Monday?
Next Monday, 5 o'clock. Is that too quick for those? Okay.
Or earlier, I mean, 4 o'clock, if they can do it 4 o'clock, we can get started early. I don't care. Like I say, whatever time, it's fine with me.
When are you out of school?
4. So 4:15, 4:30. Let's say 4:15, 4:30.
I mean, you guys can do that. I'll just come when I get off, which is gonna be 5.
Well, let's do 5.
Let's do 5.
Well, 5.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Monday the 23rd at 5?
If it's 5,
Yeah, let's do 5.
for you, I'd say let's make it convenient for everybody on the council. I mean,
Right.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Well,
consideration.
Monday at 5. Will you be able to get here 5 or 5:30?
6.
Well, doing it at 5:30 doesn't.
5 or
press you.
5:30 to give you guys time to get here?
It does not matter.
Okay.
5:30?
Perfect.
Okay, 5:30?
5:30.
Yes.
Okay.
5:30.
I will plan to meet next Monday at 5:30 to resume the discussions, and hopefully by the time we finish that discussion, we'll come out of here with a pretty well agreed budget that the manager can then come back and finalize so that we can present it to the public on the 6th of June. Is that right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion on the budget? Ladies, if you like to depart the area, so far as we're concerned, you may, unless you have something you want to speak to.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for helping.
Mayor, did you want to have a separate session for the nonprofits? I guess you'll talk about that next.
Yes. Okay, we'll go to old business now, which is the nonprofit support discussion. Now, let me lead it off. I know that we have some council members who want to speak to this, but I want to speak to a couple items here. First of all, I want to say that we appreciate all the nonprofits that applied this year. At the last council meeting, it was mentioned that none of the nonprofits had all their paperwork submitted. After further review and discussion with the finance department, the list was revised. Most nonprofits have submitted all of the paperwork, and the ones that are still missing documents either have sent memos of explanation or in contact with our clerks regarding the missing documents. These documents will be reviewed by finance department before any allocations are made. That's one item. The next thing I want to do is clarify something. In the May 4th News Argus, it was reported that the council voted to fund all nonprofits at the same amount. This is incorrect. At the May 2nd council meeting, a motion was approved that stated that all nonprofits on the list would be funded based on the numbers provided by the finance department, not to exceed a total of $160,000. So I just want to make that clarification as we move forward. Now, I believe Councilman Taylor, you had some comments you wanted to make?
Well, certainly. So the NPO funding, you know, as we set a cap that I think was very reasonable, and it was a good negotiation amongst the council at the time. And since then, and I certainly do not want to take time away from you on this one. You know, a very positive conversation was had that Councilman Matthews instigated, as I understand, led. I was able to be in attendance as well, that brought a lot of the nonprofit community into the same room to be able to discuss what it is that she was proposing, what it is that was being discussed by council, and there were some very well articulated concerns around the room from a variety of different angles. My takeaway from the conversation, again, I'm one voice, one set of ears in the room, was that I almost said the consensus. One well articulated concern in the room was that there should be a funding difference between a returning grantee, someone who has already been known, been vetted, and has a track record of success in performance of the grant with the city, and someone who is a first-time grant recipient. Not necessarily a deal breaker of absolutely no if you're a first time. Obviously, everyone was a first time at some point, but maybe there should be some sort of discrepancy there. Well articulated conversation, absolutely. Another piece was, can there be a cap that no more than 10% of an organization's budget from the last year can be funded, or if it is a first-year organization, no more than 10% of their anticipated budget for the coming year. That was another very, very well stated concern. If we get to the point where there's a motion to be made, I'll be making a motion to adjust our funding schedule to where that at a 2-to-1, whatever that is. So if it's 5,000 that a first-year grant recipient can receive, that a returning grant recipient could receive up to 10. And I'll be making the motion. Y'all haven't heard that from me yet, but it's been a really good conversation, a very healthy conversation, to allow us to make sure that we do have a pathway for a first-time grant recipient to receive funds, to grow more comfortable with the city's process, and then return the following year for a larger amount, budget permitting. The reason I say kind of pro rata or budget permitting is because if the maximum that we could afford to do is 5 and 10, or if it's 4 and 8, or if it's 32 and 64, whatever it is, but that sort of sliding scale there to allow for each segment, if you will. Also, another, and then I'll stop talking. I don't mean to be long-winded. Another very very legitimate concern is for all organizations, be it a returning grant recipient or a first-time grant recipient, how can we make sure that they are hitting the metrics that they had agreed to? Are if there's documents that they need to submit and that they haven't submitted yet, can they get their payments? Is it on a quarterly schedule or what? And making sure that there is a quarterly or some kind of structured thing to ensure that they're hitting prearranged marks before they receive the next, payment or the next piece of whatever it is that they've been slated to receive. Last thing I'll say is that I've had more constituent conversation over this, and I'm grateful for that, because it's really pulled some folks into my phone, into my inbox that otherwise just kind of see me in passing. And so I really appreciate all of the concern and the thoughtfulness that's gone into this and the feedback so far.
I've had people, as of yesterday, even stopping me in church and asking about it, as well as phone calls and so forth. So, Ms. Matthews?
Well, I really hadn't prepared to say anything concerning the issue. I do want to piggyback off what Councilmember Gaylor said, but I also want to share some things too. Up until last year, only a few organizations had the opportunity to apply for this funding. So it wasn't as if everybody always had the opportunity. We only shared this opportunity with a select group of organizations. So that needs to be clarified as well. And then two, I get it. Some organizations have been in existence, they have the proof. But also those organizations too, I'm thinking about, they have several funding sources as well. So that was why my argument was if we're gonna cap it for this year, being that we scratched the criteria to a certain degree, outside of what the initial criteria was, let's just fund them all at the same. And I heard arguments from both sides. Trust me, when you start talking about people's money, it causes conversations, and I understand that as well, because it interrupts business. But when I think about a nonprofit, one particularly on this list, who doesn't have a budget in terms of the work that they do, there's no income coming in. So if you're constantly putting out, but you're not getting anything in, even with your fundraisers that you get, that's for a specific thing, and that money is automatically regurgitated and back into the project that it was raised for. So that was my only argument. I get it, and I shared this on Friday with those nonprofits. I get it and I understand it. But I'm just saying, I just think it's fair if we're gonna cap it, which it should have always been a cap. It should have always been a cap, in my opinion, that we just fund them all equally. And I get it. Some been in years, 20 years. I mean, you can go into any room and say the Boys and Girls Club and everybody's gonna know what you're talking about. It's a household name, right? Some of us attended the Boys and Girls Club when we were kids. So I get that. You can go and say Wish. You can go and say Chamber of Commerce, and people are gonna know what you're talking about. So yeah, those names have been around for a while, but I don't want us to overlook those other organizations that may not have a budget to do that, what you were talking about the percentage, which it makes sense, and I get it and I understand that, but
And it's just a proposal.
yeah, I get it. But for an organization that doesn't have that, based on the work that they do, because there's a couple of organizations that may not fit into that criteria specifically. So that was my only argument, and the reason why I supported, the opportunity to fund them equally, just for this year, until we kind of figured out what this was going to look like moving forward. Because I think even last year we talked about how we fund nonprofits, but we really didn't generate a lot of conversation on it. So I think it's something we really need to pay attention to moving forward. So that was it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, my point, and I'll stick with the same point I've been having all along, is there is a world of difference between what the watch people and the van they take around and the drugs they give people. There is a world of difference between that and the Waynesboro Model Railroad Club. That's a world of difference. The other thing, if you look at WISH, which are putting nurses into schools, that is a very idea that is helping children. And I'm just throwing things out here. And then you look at the Literacy Connection, which is what they have done at Carver Heights, Dillard, and Goldsboro High School. That's a big difference. And these people have a proven record of making positive contributions to the people in this city that need those contributions. I'm not saying these other people don't, but I don't think it should be on equal basis, because the Watch, the Wish, the rebuilding, the HGDC, good gracious, look what Reverend Dean does over there. And I just think we have to look at the populations that they are serving and the populations which they have continually served and continue to serve. So I don't see giving everybody the same thing. I think we can maybe give a little help here to some of these startups that are coming. But the money needs to go where the people are being touched, and that's just my feeling on it.
And I don't disagree. I don't disagree with what you're saying by no means. I'm just saying, even referencing the Railroad Club, we need to specify who we're going to fund. So if we're going to fund people who do X, Y, Z, we need to identify that. Because if you say, if you're a nonprofit and you got these documents, you can apply for this funding, guess what? I'm going to do it, whether I build trains or I make shoes. But now we're saying, and I get it, Wish and Watch, I get it. I understand it, and I know how significant and important they are. But I would imagine this railroad organization feels that they are too important, and they apply. We didn't have any type of criteria that says you have to be checking all of these boxes to get funding, and I think that's something we should do. I think we should be very specific about how the funding can be used or who can apply for it moving forward. That's what I'm saying. There's just so many question marks to me. That's why I wanted to eliminate that, because when I hear that out loud, it's like we're putting in order and level of importance, and we can do that, but the railroad people, I'm sure, would say, while Wish is important, I still check all the boxes, so I still should be able to get money. So I get it. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you specifically, but
We just not.
Can we do this? Can we look at the reoccurring nonprofits, look at them and what they're doing, and set, just for this year, and set a certain amount for what they should get? And then look at the upcoming ones, see what they're doing, and then decide how to help them. And then that way, we won't be giving the same amount to everyone, but we still will be recognizing the good things that these nonprofits do, and we will be helping those new and upcoming nonprofits. Can we agree to do that?
Well, I just want to speak on that too, because that's kind of where I was looking at it. I see somebody in the audience right now that represents the organization. I don't think this is the time for them to speak, but that would be public comment if they have anything correct. I just want to make sure I'm in order. But for example, I'm just going to use the Arts Council. I mean, they're on the verge of not having a location. Their rent has gone up, and they are about, they do now? Okay. But that's something that I feel that shouldn't stay at the same amount. I mean, some things such as that need to increase yearly based on the specifics. Like Councilwoman Jones said, the reoccurring, we kind of have a little history on. The new, I want everybody to get the money. Everybody checks all the boxes, and like I said before, I think we kind of put the cart before the horse, because we came up with a standard after the fact of the application process. We kind of tweaked things after people had already applied, as I stated before. But now that we've come, I guess, to a consensus of what the prerequisites are, the checkoffs are, I think it needs to be, like I said, looked at the ones that have been there, not excluding the new. Like Councilman Gaylor said, we have. Everybody was a first at one point, but like I said, we need to kind of, base it on case-to-case basis. I work at the school where they have Wish, as they said, and they are an asset to the schools. When kids get sick, they're the first responders right there on the spot. Watch helps a lot of people that can't get to the doctors. But then we also have new up-and-comings that have been under the radar for a long amount of time that have been doing the work. So that's what I want to see done.
So question,
Yes, ma'am.
the Arts Council and their request, and this is not to say anything against any of the organizations, I cannot stress that enough. So if our arts council is asking for $32,000 and our wish is asking for 20, knowing that we can't fund them at the 32 and at the 20, and we fund them less, we still have the arts council here, we have wish here. So if we're putting them in level of importance, you know, in my mind, what does that look like? Because now we have to say, okay, we have the arts, which is important over here. We have wish, which is important over here. But some people would do this. Wish here, arts here. And that's not to say they're not both important, but if we're looking at it. So that's another thing. They ask for more money. They would probably get more money than the wish. So we're right back in my mind to saying, we don't have enough criteria on our side to really set the standard and the mark. So, I mean, I like what Councilwoman Jones said about, you know, maybe if we could identify all of the reoccurring, but we also have some that are getting into our other pockets of money that the city have as well. So I can't not think about that, where all these multiple streams of income that a lot of these organizations are getting. And it's not to say they don't need the money. I get it. They need money. I get it.
I just think we gotta look at the population that these organizations are serving and the populations that need the assistance more than anybody else. Now, how we come up to that conclusion is us. But I'm saying nurses in the school and people that can't get medical care or drugs should be above the Waynesboro Model Railroad Club.
I mean, I also think black women losing their lives at childbirth is also vital. Wayne County's numbers are devastating, and we have an organization here that deals with that. But the way we're talking, that organization is probably going to be at the low end of the receiving end, and that's necessary. Black women are losing their lives, bringing life into this world, and it's not talked about enough in Wayne County. Our numbers are devastatingly high, the mortality rate. So we can all talk about what's important and what needs to be serviced, because that's something I'm passionate about. You have another organization that is dealing with our teens and teen violence and recidivism and all of those other kind of things, and drugs and alcohol and substance misuse that we don't talk about, but these organizations are doing that. But because they haven't been around 20 years and they haven't been on our funding list for the past 10 years, it's kind of like, oh, well, we're saying that they're important, but how are we saying that they're important? Because those things are important to me. You got one guy who picks up kids every single day, Sunday to Sunday, picks these kids up, teaching them soccer, exposing them to Black history and all of the things that they probably would have never seen before, at zero salary, with zero funds. He works 2 jobs just to fund this one thing because those kids deserve it. I want to get behind those people who don't get funding from any other source, but out of their pocket and the goodness of the people in Goldsboro that want to help and support those kids.
Well, if we help them a little bit this year, and maybe we could see some outcomes the next year.
That we already have outcomes. We already have outcomes.
Well, I'm saying we can see more documented outcomes. That's my point.
I think that I'm going to say that I am certainly aware of the fact that there are agencies here that are doing great things for, in a humanitarian sense, for the city of Goldsboro. And it's easy to look at this list here and say, well, this organization provides a better outcome for the general population than the other does, and they're asking for a different amount of money than the other one does, and so forth. I am certainly opposed to capping the amount of monies that we give these MPOs, and I think we have to look at each one of them separately and determine what they've asked for, and then come to an agreement as to how much we give them. Now, can we do that sitting here tonight? Probably not. I don't know. So as I said before, this list of information that we required to be submitted has been updated. I believe, Madam Clerk, you're still owed some things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So,
They were given a little bit of time though to fulfill their documents, but I have asked for them to kind of bump that date up.
so I would suggest that we look again, in addition to the budget, to have a separate, work session, to, iron these issues out and come up with a amount of money that we're going to allocate, or appropriate for these individual organizations.
I have one more thing. If you guys haven't looked at the requirements for agency support, and I'm gonna apologize too because I'm very passionate about this issue, but technically, if we just look at the requirements of the agency support, it only speaks to financial. So if that's what we're gonna let's deal with what we said the requirements were. I'm looking at them right here. It doesn't talk about impact. It doesn't talk about how many people are served. It talks about simply financial records is what we are requiring here. That's it. So if we're going to fund them, we need to fund them based on the requirements for the agency. And that's it. Removing biasness, personal opinions. Let's just stick to the black and white words that we have here that says requirements for funding over $1,000. And this is a general statute. They're listed here. The nonprofits have them. There's some other background information. And then
How can we in good conscience not take into consideration what their mission is? And what the outcomes of that is?
I'm not saying, I mean, your conscience is your conscience, mine is mine. What I'm saying is, when we're looking at the financial record, this is it, right here. I think we should use this criteria. I mean, we have a summary here that speaks to what they do, but if we're gonna do this, I just want us to be very unbiased. I want us to do it fairly, and I want us to really look at it logically, and to try to do what's best. We're not gonna be able to please everybody, and I get it. I think we've been doing this wrong for a very long time, and now it's kind of raising its head, and some people are not gonna be happy about it. Anytime you start moving some money around, some people are gonna be affected by it, and I think this is why this is raising so much of a concern, because there's a possibility that the allotment is gonna be lower. So now because people are asking for some significant dollars on this list. Significant dollars.
Well, I know it's hard for some of you to believe, but I'm really not an artsy person, and $32,000 for the Arts Council, to me, is something that I'm not agreeable with, not because I don't think the Arts Council needs the money, but when I see the art community, a week ago or so, a Marilyn Monroe print by Andy Warhol went for $750 million. I mean, there's money out in the arts somewhere. And, but when I look at these other things, such as the WISH and the Community in Schools and the Literacy Connection and wages and all that, then I definitely see these are helping people. And I have no problem with helping nonprofits that are helping people. And, the arts are important.
And they help people.
But
They help people.
Helping people's lives is, to me, is more important than and gosh, they ain't no telling how many emails I want to get from the artsy people. But, I see, all these other programs that deal with health and the mental health and all that of people as much more important to me, and that's a personal opinion. And again, I can't get back in opinions. So we'll leave it at that.
And one thing I agree with Councilmember Matthews said, a lot of these organizations have external revenue sources. And a lot of them that are prefaced with Wayne in front of them, I'm assuming are countywide, not just city. So I'm even though I say I work at the school where they have WISH, are these organizations, are some of these organizations funded by other revenue streams, whereas Freedom Fam would not be a recipient?
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to figure. So I think that needs to be taken into account also when we meet and we reconvene on this topic, to see which one of these NPOs have external revenue sources as opposed to those that don't have any. I mean, that needs to be looked at as well, because if, say for example, I'm gonna use it again, Freedom Fam, if we're the only benefactor of this organization, and that's the only source of revenue as opposed to, let's just say, Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, that may have 5 or 6, you know, we kind of have to look at that as well. Even though it's a first time person signing up versus a person that's been getting money for 10 or 15 years, you know, if they have external resources, revenue, then, you know, we need to take that in consideration as well, you know, because I believe in startup businesses and organizations. So I think we need to, between now and the next time we talk about this topic, we need to look at all of those factors.
It's in the application that you, I'll re-forward it to you.
Okay.
You can see where all
Where
of
all
that
the
money
other
come
people
from.
are getting.
So let me just throw this out there. While I strongly disagree with this, would you guys just be okay with just, I can take back the motion that I made and we just fund all of them like we did last year, which means we go to $300,000 and that way everybody can get.
I don't agree with that.
No.
No, I don't agree with that,
I don't see no other
no.
way than I don't see any other way.
I
to
think
do
it's
this.
gonna take us more than just tonight
Yeah.
to do this, because, I too want to be very fair. And I too want to look at the reoccurring nonprofits and the ones that are coming up. So I would like to make a motion that we come together in our session. And this is twofold. So let me just discuss this. Let me just say, I think first of all, we need to look at the reoccurring and the upcoming. I think they need to be separated that way. And then we use that statute that Councilwoman Matthews have discussed, along with some other things. But I think first of all, they need to be separated between, I'm not making that motion. That's my opinion. That's how I want this opinion.
Well, and Councilwoman Jones, the sheet that we do have, you know, fortunately, the gray bar is that dividing line. What was provided in our folder was, on top of that are the recurring requests,
Okay,
and what's below that are the new requests.
okay, so we've already got it that way. Perfect.
I'm hoping I'm right.
But
Is that
for
right?
there are some that has gotten funded before, just not last year.
But not through
But not-
general funds.
Right. The 4-day that is just, they were funded through CDBG,
Okay.
CB funds,
Mhm.
but they have not, that I know of in the
Okay.
past.
And I realize that it's somewhat, actually, it's not splitting hairs, it's significant. What we're talking about right now is not the CDBG pot, it's not HUD pot, it's not, this is specifically grant making from general fund, right? Correct. Then, I said I was gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and if we choose to not get a second and it dies, or if we choose to do an amendment and change the numbers, then so be it. But in an interest to save us from ourselves, Mayor, I move that we honor the cap that we put in place last time of $160,000, fund all returning grant applicants at $10,000, and fund all new applicants at $5,000, which totals $150,000, which is actually slightly less than what we said, with criteria that all documents must be, you know, turned in accordance with the actual stated application before they receive any funds.
Okay, let me make sure I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
So your reoccurring is gonna get 10,000. Okay, and then the upcoming will get 5. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And just to clarify, I'm saying exclusively for FY 2022-2023.
Right,
I
okay.
do not want to make this motion next year. I agree with everything that we're saying, that we've got to have a policy with more.
and
more
see,
lessons
that's what I
next
was
year.
talking about earlier, when I was saying, you know, separate them that way. I'll wait till they finish their conversation. because that's impolite.
Councilman Gaylor, just to clarify your motion,
Sure.
are you referring to this particular list
I
as to the
am,
ones
yes,
above
sir.
and below? I was
Yes,
just
sir.
asking if the clerk was gonna attach that or just incorporate that as to, the motion as to which specific ones you were, referencing.
Whatever you think is best, I can itemize verbally or we can attach it.
I would
by
just say
reference.
that you just reference the list that was provided to
Okay.
council, and that way, that will be attached as part of your motion to delineate which ones you're referring to above and below the gray line.
Yes, sir. And
Thank
I
you, sir.
apologize if that's,
Would,
I'll hold up in front of the camera so someone can zoom in for a second with that.
Beautiful.
And my
All right.
comment prior to, prior to when Mr. Jean and Mr. Gaylor were discussing, were talking, my comment prior to that was, this is exactly what I was talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So as I understand the motion, it's to take this list of 2022-23 agency request that is broken down into reoccurring and new request agencies, allocate funds of $10,000 to the reoccurring, $5,000 to the new, not to exceed $160,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask if we can make an amendment to that motion, and that would be to exclude the Model Railroad Club and the 4-Day Movement, since the 4-Day Movement is funded by the Community Block Grant funds. So I'd like to entertain an amendment.
So we have a motion, is there a second?
I think that Councilman Geller made the motion, so.
We still need a second on the main motion before we
Still,
get to the second.
that's correct, but then you're gonna need to have a motion and a second on the amended motion. So I've not heard a second. on
I'll
the first
second his motion.
Okay, now we've got a second to Councilman Geller's motion.
It's
So that's pending, you've had some discussion, now if someone wants to move to amend that motion, they can move to amend it.
I'd move to amend the motion to exclude Wingsboro Model Railroad Club and the 4-Day Movement.
Now, somebody need to second that before we can discuss it.
Mhm.
Yes.
I'll second. Is there a second to the amended motion?
No, it's seconded to discuss it. We need to discuss it, right?
No, we gotta second it first.
That's what I'm saying, but after we second it, we
Yes,
discuss,
yes.
we've not voted on,
No.
because I disagree with that.
Is there a second to the amended motion?
Broadway.
Councilman Broadway.
Broadway did.
Okay, Councilman Broadway. Is there any discussion?
Why are we eliminating the railroad club?
I mean, I just can't see, you know, it's, I can't see the public, benefit that they have. I mean, that's my own personal thoughts. I mean, again, you know, why not do a bird watchers club, or why not do something else? I mean, this is, to me, that's sort of extravagant to ask the city to fund basically a club.
But the city did not, again, we did not specify what your purpose had to be, what your mission had to be. It's very educational. If anybody hasn't gone, I encourage you to go and see it. You know, that's another education piece. It's very similar to the arts. It's just from a different perspective. They are a nonprofit. They checked all the boxes, and I don't think it's fair to exclude them just because they don't fit our individual idea of helping people, because I'm pretty sure they could justify their education piece just like the arts can justify their education piece. So I don't think we should get into the exclusion part.
But
That's
again,
just-
bird watchers clubs and every other club can benefit people. And, you know, again, I don't see a public benefit to the citizens of Goldsboro. I understand it does positive things. I'm not debating that. But what I'm saying is, are we willing to spend taxpayers' dollars to fund a club?
I have a question. With the exclusion, would that bump up the money for some of the other ones? Like, for example, say we knock off those two that were
No,
recommended.
because we set a cap.
Ma'am?
We set a cap. It wouldn't.
Well, you could.
We could-
Well, we
You
could
knocked
adjust,
off,
we haven't pushed it.
$10,000, you would, you
Say-
could
say-
add that much
right.
percentage
That-
wise on the other ones.
That's my point. So we're saying 10 for the recurring, then we said 5 initially for, when we said all of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we knock those off before this motion passes, would that bump up, could that bump up, say the number that Freedom gets? Instead of 5, he could get 6 or 7, since we've knocked off 2.
Could get.
Could we do that?
Another $500, $600, $700, yes.
Yeah.
But the motion doesn't state that.
I-
The motion says 5 for, new.
That's right.
And 10 for the other, irregardless of who's on it.
Oh,
That's right, that's right.
And let me just add to, the
We
fact that
voted on that.
someone, excuse me, sir.
Okay.
The fact that someone applies for this does not guarantee them that they're gonna get money. They have to submit documentation and other, criteria, meet other criteria. So just by virtue of submitting an application does not guarantee you that you're gonna receive money.
But if they're
And
checking
I-
the boxes, I'm just saying
Yes.
still, if it gets to that point where they don't submit it, then fine, we shouldn't. But now I think we're going on how we feel personally. And I think that's a dangerous, because nobody mentioned wages. And wages says funded with the CDBG. So if we're gonna remove 4-day, we also have to remove wages. We have to keep it fair across the
Right.
board is what I'm
Okay.
saying.
That's
So
what
in
you're
light
saying.
of being fair, this is, it's getting messy now. Like, we have to remove everybody that's gonna get that funding.
Well, and I agree, that was my question about 4-day movement funding. Why were we taking them off? And that's an excellent point with wages.
Or we could say 160,000 divided by 19 and everybody get $8,421.05.
No,
I am
no.
not going to agree to that.
No, I ain't agree with that.
I don't understand, so what are we gonna do? Are we moving wages and 4-day movement, or are we just?
Well, if the motion fails,
Motion fails.
Currently have a motion on the floor with it properly seconded. So it's up for a vote once the discussion is
The, voting on the amendment prior to,
No, well, you have the amended, now that it's been amended, you have the amended motion, which was on the floor.
are we voting on the amendment separately prior to actually going into,
so
He's
then I'm not.
amended the
motion.
he's amended the original motion.
but we didn't vote on the
We
amendment
didn't
yet?
vote.
Didn't vote on anything.
I think if you voted to amend the motion and you approved the amendment to the motion, and then you vote to approve the motion with the amendment included.
We're in
We haven't
discussion
voted to
on-
amend it.
I understand, I'm talking about when the discussion's over, because y'all are stopping from where we're at.
Okay, well, we haven't voted to amend it, so,
That's exactly what I just said, you had to vote to amend it, he asked
Right.
to amend the motion, y'all haven't voted to
No.
actually amend the motion, you had to approve the amendment.
well,
You
call
had
the
to approve
vote for the
motion with
amendment.
So what's the amendment?
Call the
again?
vote for the amendment.
Can you
The
repeat
amendment is to exclude 4-day, and what else is that,
And if you take the money from wages, I withdraw my second. Because that's your senior companion.
we haven't
money.
gotten to that yet.
Oh, okay, but I'll,
We on the amendment. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But let me ask the question. The amendment was to exclude the 4-day movement based on the fact that it was funded by CBDG, correct? Or is that incorrect? Because if we're still talking about the exclusion based on CBDG funding, then we also have to talk about, like you said earlier, if it's in fairness. So that's what I'm asking. What's the amendment?
Councilman Acott, would you restate your amended?
I withdraw my amendment.
Okay.
Okay. So if we go back to by withdrawing the amendment, we're back to the original, motion to adopt, that the original amendment was to fund the reoccurring agencies to amount of $10,000. The new request, agencies, $5,000, not to exceed $160,000. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, are we currently on legal path here?
Yes, Mr. Aycock has withdrawn his amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was not voted on, so essentially it died on the floor because it wasn't considered. So now we still have the motion originally made by Councilman Gale. It does have a proper second, which is still in court.
Correct. So we have a motion now. Do we have a second?
You already.
We already seconded.
Oh, okay, oh, wait, okay.
You seconded it.
Bill Broadway.
Mr. Broadway seconded the original motion.
No, I seconded the amendment, not the
Okay.
original
Seconded the
motion.
original motion.
I did not-
Mr. Aycock,
I didn't-
Councilmember Aycock made the second for.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no second.
You seconded it.
Mm-mm. I thought it was Mr. Broadway is what I've got
It
for
was
second.
Councilmember Aycock
I'll second
seconded
it. I'll
Councilmember
second
Taylor's
it.
motion.
Okay,
We'll make it official.
whew, okay,
Yeah, mercy.
You second the
yes,
motion?
okay.
Sure.
Is there any discussion on the current motion?
I think the city manager was trying to say something.
I just wanted to let you know with the CDBG CV funding, I don't have the details on that for the next FY. So the amendment could have been a problem, but since that's gone, that's no longer an issue.
All right. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
So you're gonna set 10,000 aside for the recurring and $5,000 for the new ones.
That's the motion.
Are there any limitations to this as far as if they don't have all the documentation and where you're gonna disperse it amongst those two different groups or?
Excuse me, that was part of the original motion, that with the criteria that all the documents were turned in.
Prior to receiving their first, I'm presuming, quarterly payment.
Okay, just for
Whatever council
clarity,
wants to do.
just for clarity, one more time, with the documents included in it.
Sure. My motion is that we support the recurring applicants with a $10,000 grant, the new first-time applicants with a $5,000 grant. No grant recipient is to receive any funds until they have turned in all required documentation and satisfied any requirements by our finance department, and that it be done in quarterly payments, which I believe is already our practice. Is that fair?
I don't know anything about the payments thing. You can make that party motion if you want to. I don't know how that's handled. Finance director.
I believe they're already in quarterly. Yeah.
You pay the quarter.
We pay them quarterly and they comply quarterly.
Change that.
So just stay with what we do.
Stay with what you got.
We do that already.
Okay, is everybody clear on the motion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Aycock seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand.
Mr. Aycock?
I believe the motion fails, is that correct?
How many? What?
You went to a vote. I didn't have to.
Gaylor, Jones, and Matthews.
This is Charlie's motion, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And I voted in favor of it, but I was alone, so.
No, I voted in favor.
Oh, thank you.
Didn't you raise your hand?
Okay, motion failed.
Did Councilwoman Matthews raise her hand?
Okay, ladies and
No, that's
gentlemen,
not, that's fine. You didn't ask for who's opposed. I say who's there. The only reason I brought that up is if Councilman Aycock does not vote at all,
Oh, okay,
he's
let me-
here, he's counted as a yes. If he doesn't vote at all. But you haven't called no yes.
Yeah, let me-
No, if there's a
okay,
no
I'm
or a
sorry.
yes over there.
I got ahead of myself. All
You
those,
need to raise a no.
all those opposed to the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Okay,
Official, motion fails.
now the motion fails.
Thank you.
In that regard, I suggest that we defer this discussion to a later time. Come back and try to finalize this.
Does that need to be made in a motion?
Sir?
Does that need to be made into a motion or?
I haven't made a motion, I'm just saying that,
I suggest we do that. If there's any comment, anybody want to make a motion or whatever?
The motion's not necessary
Okay.
for it to be put back on the agenda at another time.
If there's, I'll make the motion then, that we defer further discussion this evening on the nonprofit funding allocations to a later time to be determined.
Second.
Motion's made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, motion's carried. We will come back and with a date to continue this discussion. Okay. At this time, let's move on. We'll move to the consent agenda. Mr. Simon?
Yes, sir. All right, Felicia Brown. Kiwanis train contract.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Everyone's doing fine this evening. So I am here before you. Well, maybe after I smile. Sorry about that. I'm here before you this evening to discuss the Kiwanis train contract renewal. So to give a little brief background on it, during the October 16th meeting of last year in 2021, the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro requested approval from the City Council to purchase a new miniature train to replace the current miniature train. The Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro would then donate the new train to the City of Goldsboro upon receiving it. The current contract with the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro has not been revised since December of 2008. So with that in mind, the contract needs to be updated to reflect the new miniature train manufactured by Swanee River Railroad Company. In your agenda packet, we included a proposed agreement between the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro and the City of Goldsboro. Earlier today, I was actually contacted by our city attorney from the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro's attorney requesting a change to item number 8. So I'm going to read what is in your agenda packet, and then I'm going to read the proposed change to that item, and then moving forward, the motion, the motion on the consent agenda item, I believe will be with the new proposed change. So currently, item number 8 reads, the operation of said train shall be under the control, supervision, and management of the Kiwanis Club. Only properly trained Kiwanis Club members, 18 years or older, can operate the train. We were contacted today, and after some discussion, what the revision is now being proposed for that number 8 is, the operation of said train shall be under the control, supervision, and management of the Kiwanis Club. The train may be operated only by a person who is 1, 18 years of age or older, 2, properly trained, and 3, either a Kiwanis Club member or a volunteer. So that is the proposed change to what you all have in your agenda package. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And so that is before you all this evening to consider as far as that agreement. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, ma'am.
Tonight I'm following on Felicia's heels to ask you to accept this resolution, to accept the donation of the F-unit locomotive and 12-passenger car miniature train from the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro. State statute gives us the authority to accept donations under 168.11, and then also the activity that this train will be conducted under is legal under 168.209C24, which is the Parks and Recreation statute. The approximate value of the train donation is $98,500. of which after the council approves this tonight, we will have to put it on our insurance policy because it will become a part of the city of Goldsboro's assets. So tonight I'm asking you to approve the attached resolution authorizing the acceptance of the donation of personal property to the city of Goldsboro from the Kiwanis Club of Goldsboro of the F-unit locomotive with the 12-passenger car.
Any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Got another one?
I think my next item is my last one. Tonight also, we're asking for you to accept or reject the initial bid, and if accepted, authorize finance to advertise for upset bids for 900 Marvin Street, the offer being from Mr. Anthony Rivera. We have received an offer on this piece of property. It is a city-owned property only, and council must either accept or reject the offer, and then at that point authorize advertisement of the upset bids. This offer comes from Mr. Anthony Rivera. The offer is $1,685. The bid deposit was $84.25. Tax value is $3,370, and the zoning is R6. The offer is at least 50% of the tax value of the property, and the bid deposit is 5% in that amount, and it has been received in the form of the business check. So at this time, I'm just asking for council to, by motion, accept or reject the property. If you accept it, when you have your formal agenda tonight for consent, there will be a resolution to approve upset bid process. So I just need an acceptance or rejection of the offer right now.
So we need to make a motion now.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we accept the bid and authorize finance to advertise for upset bids.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. In discussion. All in favor of accepting the bid as presented, please raise your hand. I believe we have a consensus.
Make it easy on you, Catherine. Try to
Thank
make it
you.
easy on you.
So you've received the departmental monthly reports. Any comments or questions you have on the manager or department heads who might be here? If not, we'll move on to trying to get our closed session in before the 7 o'clock meeting. So I'd entertain a motion to close the open session and go into a closed session.
Can
So
we clarify for
Personnel?
personnel?
Yeah,
And
for
I have a
personnel, I'm
potential
sorry.
litigation issue as well, sir.
Okay, for personnel and litigation. A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we'll adjourn and for the time being.
But you put it in the water,
You're up, Mayor, you're back up in the
Okay.
open session.
We're back in open session. Is there any further business to conduct during the work session? If not, we'll adjourn to we'll recess till 7 o'clock.
that's why.
Okay, at 7 o'clock, Monday, May 16, 2022, the Goldsboro City Council regular meeting is in session. Madam Clerk, at this time, we're going to receive our invocation by Archbishop Anthony Slater. Sir, if you will come forward, and then afterwards, we will remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Ham and City Councilmen, City Councilwomen. We thank God for all of you. So let's go to prayer together. Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we can call on your name and even seek your help. We pray for the City Council and the City Councilwomen. We pray for this city. We pray for the leaders of this city. Give them clarity of thought as they make decisions on our behalf. Bless this city, Lord, as we come back into the storms. Out of the storms, God, that we can be standing as an example for this area. We thank you for the opportunities, Lord, for all the things that you're about to do through Goldsboro. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bishop Slater. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Take a seat, please. Now, Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Mayor Ham,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak,
Present.
Councilwoman Jones,
Here.
Councilman Broadway,
Here.
Councilwoman Matthews,
Present.
Councilman Gaylor,
Present.
Councilman Aycock.
Here. Okay, we're all here. So next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of May 2nd. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes, May 2nd meeting.
Second.
Motion is made and second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by raising your hand. Have a consensus? Thank you. At this time, we have a couple of presentations, and I'm going to start off by asking Councilman Pollock to begin.
Okay. Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas Tourette syndrome is an inherited neurological disorder that is characterized by involuntary physical and vocal tics that occur many times a day. And whereas Tourette syndrome is often accompanied by other mental health disorders such as attention deficit and obsessive compulsive disorder, learning disabilities, and anxiety. And whereas Tourette syndrome and tic disorders affect 1 in 100 children. More than 23,000 school-aged children in the state of North Carolina alone are dealing with Tourette syndrome, and although some of these cases are aided by medication, there is no standard treatment or known cure for the disorder. And whereas there's an important need for more professional help with interest and expertise to identify, counsel, and treat people with Tourette syndrome, a disorder that is often misdiagnosed and misunderstood. And whereas positive actions to assist children and families living with Tourette syndrome will result from a broadening of public and professional knowledge and acceptance of Tourette syndrome. And whereas the Tourette Association of America is actively providing services to families, educating medical professionals and teachers, and supporting research better understand the signs and treatments of Tourette syndrome. Now therefore be it resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim May 15th through June 15th, 2022 as Tourette Syndrome Awareness Month, and June 4th, 2022 as Tourette Syndrome Awareness Day in the city of Goldsboro as a special day to promote understanding, compassion, and acceptance for all of our fellow citizens who deserve and need our support to break the stigma that surrounds Tourette syndrome. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and fixed the seal of the city of Goldsboro this 16th day of May 2022.
Mayor Pro Tem, I think you have someone here that is here to receive the proclamation. If you, I think he wants to have a photograph with you as well.
Yes.
Sir, give us your name.
My name is John Paul Levin here, sir.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, John.
Face the audience there.
I just want to say that this affects not only me, but hundreds of children and young adults all around the country, not just in the state. And even though it is hard living with this, that support from outside sources like my grandma, for example, and many other sources. Sorry, and a lot of other places really mean a lot, and I just thank you all for the support.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item is our upcoming Armed Forces Day, and I'd like to read a proclamation associated with that. Whereas our continued freedoms are possible due to the service and sacrifices made by military personnel and their families, and whereas the third Saturday in May has been declared to be Armed Forces Day, and whereas military supporting nonprofit organizations and volunteers, veterans, service organizations, both public and private, are encouraged to demonstrate esprit de corps as they work together to show their appreciation of our military personnel. Now therefore be resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim our support on May 21, 2022 for Armed Forces Day, and officially recognize the brave service and many sacrifices made by our active duty service members, those who serve before them, and their family members. Let me also add that we also appreciate those that are in our reserves forces as well. Furthermore, we recognize the volunteers and nonprofit organizations and businesses who band together to demonstrate their appreciation. And witness wherefore I have to set my hand and fix the seal of the city of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this 16th day of May, 2022. We have, that's very important to those of us who have served in the military, and we should never fail to recognize and remember those that have worn the uniform to make this country what it is today. We have an event coming up here on Saturday that will further recognize our Armed Forces Freedom Fest, and I believe someone is going to come up and speak to that later on. So, okay, that let's see, that takes care of those presentations. Let's see, and we got one more. We got Mr. Chip Craig. Come on up, sir. Talk about the Kiwanis train.
Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here before you again. I was here last time on February 9th. Originally, I was here 9 months ago today on August 16th, asking your permission to move forward with a project to upgrade the train at Herman Park. On August 16th, you approved us to go ahead and fundraise to replace the train, to use our reserve fund that we had, $50,000 of that to put a down payment deposit on the train. You allowed us to work with the city staff on a design, and any proceeds from the sale of the existing train would go back into the project. If you look at the original budgeting in August 21, we proposed to you that we were looking for $75,000 in fundraising from our community. If you look across that line item there, so far to date we received $172,000 in cash donations from the community. Our original project was probably about $150,000 to $175,000 project. When you consider all the gifts and kinds we have, we're probably at about a $275,000 to $300,000 gift to this community. This is a new train. It was manufactured in Lufkin, Texas. It cost $98,490 for the original, for the actual equipment, and there are a lot of other costs to go with that as well. It is paid in full, thanks to those donations, and hopefully later on tonight you'll be approving that as a gift. It was delivered Saturday and it was set up on Saturday. I have two gentlemen here in the audience, Grayson and Grant, if you guys don't mind standing up. Grayson Hussey and Grant Weber reached out to us and said they would like to help out with this project. They said they would like to give the gift of transportation. They made a 2,500-mile round-trip journey at their expense at no cost to us to go to Lufkin, Texas, to bring that train back to us. They left last Wednesday. They got back here late Friday night. We had the manufacturer flew in that Saturday, so we have everything that was set up and ready to go. So just a big shout out to thanking them to in our community, because that's what it's all about. It's all about our community working together on this. So thank you, gentlemen. This is one of the reasons why we're here tonight. You can see the original concession stand and that ugly dirt all around there. You'll see some drawings there on the right-hand side. Because we have received so much more money than we initially anticipated, and with the gift of construction labor and that oversight being given to us, we now are doing a much bigger project than we ever anticipated. Before, we were going to put like a few simple posts and a little bit of covered area over the train. Joe Smith with Smith Engineering and Design has been working with us at no expense to us, came up with design concepts, and this is what he's proposing. It is a huge expansion of the concession stand. It requires to actually tear off the roof and start all over. We talked about doing a brick apron. You'll see the white area in the middle is the existing footprint of the concession stand. You'll see that we have a huge area that we want to cover under the engraved bricks and expand that patio area. A lot of these bricks are just not going to be the engraved bricks that our citizens have purchased with their names on them or to honor loved ones. A lot of these will be literacy and educational bricks. So we've had people that have come to us and said, we want to do some things. So we're going to have a lot of literacy and educational elements built into this. It's about 1,800 square feet of covered area. It is substantial. It actually could be used as more like a pavilion and to go to event space as well. We have the initial bricks are in, the engraved bricks. We had these done in a wheat field color. They'll be surrounded by a field of 8,000 red bricks when they're installed. The bricks are here. Our initial plan, and we talked about 3 phases of the project. First phase is the purchase of the train. Second phase is to install the brick apron. Third phase at a later time be a covered platform. Because the project has gotten so much bigger, TA Loving, who will be the general contractor on this project, if you allow us to move forward, is advised that we not install the bricks at this time, and instead, because they're worried about damage, and they can't guarantee they wouldn't get hurt if we put them in now with the major construction, but delay that to when we're actually doing the construction. So we're not going to install these right now. Why are we here tonight? A couple things. One, tonight we are seeking your approval to allow us to go forward with these conceptual designs we've just shown you, the brick patio and the design drawings. We're way deep into it. We thought, well, maybe we ought to make sure that you guys approve of this first before we approach the planning engineering departments. We've had Brian Jones working extensively in the civil engineering plans. Because of the huge expanse, water runoff and everything else, it's become a civil engineering project as well, how to handle that water. Our plan is to open the public on Memorial Day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday from 1 to 5. Those would be the first public rides. That assumes that next week the Department of Labor Amusement Park Ride Division is supposed to be here next week to do the certification and sign off on the new train. And once we get past that, then we can start doing the operations. We will probably, if things proceed smoothly, we will probably run only through July 4th weekend. And then what we'll do, we'll shut down for about 2 months to do all that major construction because for safety and security reasons, we don't want to be driving through construction zones and things like that. And then the plan would be to have a grand reopening at about Labor Day weekend. This is in your packet. We won't go through it, but there's kind of like a calendar. It's in the handout so the press and everybody else can see that. We just want to say a huge thank you to the community. On the left is the original train in 1955 when we received it. You can see that color scheme. On the right is the new train. We went back to try to mimic that theme and that paint scheme. And then the biggest question and the biggest positive and negative blowback we've gotten is what happened to the old train. The city sold the train had to sell the train at a government auction site, surplus equipment at govdeals.com. They put it up for auction on February 16th. The train was purchased, surprisingly to us, and in fact there were no bids on it until the last 2 minutes of the time period. And then 2 or 3 bidders were going at it pretty heavily, $28,900 in net proceeds to the city. We didn't know, we have no control over who gets the train. It turns out it's a company called Mansfield Hillaflight out of Milton, Vermont, small community. Mansfield Hillaflight is one of the biggest helicopter overhaul and restoration facilities. So their big thing, they're one of the biggest ones in the world apparently, in overhauling and tearing apart and rebuilding the helicopters. That's their thing. But they do a lot of philanthropic work in Vermont. So what they did was they purchased this. They will spend the train, they will spend the next 9 months, because they have the expertise and the equipment to do it, to restore it to its original condition. Then it's to be donated to the Shelburne Museum right outside of Burlington, Vermont, and they will maintain it for the museum. The Shelburne Museum is very unique in the fact that they have 65 acres of property. They're not your normal museum. One of the things they specialize in is preserving old structures. Throughout New England, in the last 50, 60 years, they have purchased 39 buildings, rare buildings, round barns, lighthouses, things like that that are going to be torn down. They want to preserve them. Had them taken apart piece by piece, put back together on this property. So what they plan on doing is now what they're going to do, they have preserved the original 1953 train, but they're going to lay about a half mile to mile of track all through their property, and it will be an operational museum piece for there. So we are thrilled and excited about that. There were some people not so happy in the community. We talked about static displays. We think this is very fitting and exactly where we think the train should be. So I'm going to kind of double back here, because what I'm really seeking for approval tonight is, I go back one last slide, is to go ahead and proceed with this plan of taking the concession stand apart, rebuilding it, and making it something much more substantial. We have to go through planning department, historical commission, everything else. So that's why we're here tonight, to get your blessing so we can move forward from here.
Okay, so you heard the presentation and what's conceptually designed here. Any questions any council member might have?
Just thank you for what you do.
It's our pleasure. It's really the community has done it, not us.
I believe that I would speak for the council, but I'll let them speak for themselves. There's a general consensus here, at least my approval is to go forward with this. I'll let the other council members speak if they will.
Absolutely.
Okay, sir, looks like you got to go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Go forward. Thank you. And thank you for all the work you Hawaiians do. And Grayson, you and your partner there, thank you for the trip you took out to Texas. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll now go into public hearing, and we'll be talking about rezoning issues. I'll ask the planning department manager to come up and speak.
Good evening, councilman and councilwoman. How's everybody doing? Let's see. So, Mayor, I believe if you will, please, sir, if you'll open up public hearing. Will we do this after presentation?
Yes.
Typically. Thanks for keeping me on track there. All right. So, if you will, we have 3 public hearings concerning 3 rezoning requests. The first one tonight will be Z622 by NC Residential Partners, LLC. The subject property is located on the south side of East Paketown Road between Ashley Avenue and Country Day Road. The subject property is currently vacant and undeveloped. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from residential R16 to residential 12. The applicant recently acquired the property and desires a change of zone for higher density residential development purposes. If rezoned, the applicant will be required to meet the regulations of the residential 12 zoning district. Site and landscape plans will be required and approved by city officials before construction permits can be issued in the future. So, the surrounding property, north of the property is residential 12 and residential 16. South of the property is residential 16. East of the subject property are properties that are zoned R16, and west properties are zoned R16 as well. The property was once occupied by a single-family dwelling prior to 2010. The city's land use recommendation recommends medium-density development for the property. Engineering, the subject property is not located in a special flood hazard area. City water and sewer utilities are available to serve the property. At this time, there's no action necessary. The Planning Commission will have a recommendation for the Goldsboro City Council at their regularly scheduled meeting on June the 6th. I'll show you just some other pictures here. Here's our comprehensive land use plan. And again, at this time, the property in question, the applicant has not specified a particular use, just a conventional rezoning to the R12 zoning district. Are there any questions, sir?
Any questions from the council? This is a public hearing for Z622. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak? Come forward, sir. You state your name, please.
My name is Charles Henry. I live at 103 Whitney Place, off of Ashley. I'm here to speak against it. I don't know if you're familiar with the area at all. We have 3 schools there. In all 3 of those schools, the parents have to drop their kids off and pick them up every afternoon. The traffic there is absolutely terrible. I myself had a bad accident there. I got rear-ended and the guy was doing 70 miles an hour and he hit me. One of the other neighbors got T-boned there. It's terrible. Have you done any impact study? Have you done any traffic studies for anything in that area?
I can't speak to that. I said I cannot speak to that.
Have you got plans of doing this?
I'll leave that to the Planning Commission.
What about as far as the city comprehensive plan?
But just for the record, I'm very familiar with the area you're speaking of, so go ahead.
But you know how congested it is.
Yes, I do.
And here you want to take and change it from an R16 to an R12?
Sir, let me explain the process. We're not taking any action here tonight.
I understand that.
We give you an opportunity to come up and speak. You'll have another opportunity when the Planning Commission holds its meeting next Monday, I believe it is. And then it'll come back to the council for a decision after that.
But as I say, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see you do the impact study. I'd like to see a traffic study done. I'd like to see what the city comprehensive plan says as far as development for that area.
Well, we don't have any plans. There are people that investors.
I know, but you vote on it.
I'm sorry, I think you're misunderstanding the purpose of you coming up here. If you want to speak for or against it, fine, but don't come up here and make us the villains in this thing. We're trying to be very neutral at this point.
So have they got plans of doing any type of studies before this goes back for a vote?
I can't speak to that, I just said that.
Okay, as long as you're aware of all the traffic, it's terrible. From 7:30 in the morning, I live off Ashley Drive. There's a few of my neighbors that are here. We can't get out in the morning. It's terrible. And we're between those 2 traffic lights. You got the businesses on Industrial Drive, and then from Country Day Road all the way down to William Street, you have other industrial businesses that go up and down that area. It's just a terrible traffic jam.
Well, sir, I can speak on that. I was a fireman in that district for about 8 years, and I'm very familiar with that, where the school is across the street, and it is an issue. And like I said, that's something that the whole entire city, especially with the school location there, right across from Wayne Christian, if I'm not mistaken.
I live right across the street.
Catherine Drive and all the other streets that follow that path. So I'm very familiar with that. And, we're plagued with those situations throughout the city, and not taking anything away from your concern, but, that is an important issue. So I do.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I'm totally against it to take it into an R12 and
Yes,
pile in more homes in there. It's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
For me, I live in that area, and for
Sir,
me,
could you state your name, please?
I'm Thomas Newton Jr. And for me, having multi-apartments and all that stuff in that area, from where we're at R16, I totally against it myself, because right now you got all single-family homes there, and I like to keep it like that because, like he said, the traffic is horrendous there for one thing. And then if you got multi-family homes versus what you got right now, single-family, that whole area, if you're familiar with it, I mean, it's just going to create havoc. That's all for one thing. So that's just what I wanted to say. That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Mr. Talbot, if I may ask you a question. So, trying to get my bearings, is Kingsway across the street?
Yes, sir,
From
Kingston.
where that is? And
Yes, sir.
Would this be the same type of development if it's proposed as Kingsway, like duplexes, or what's the proposed usage?
At this time, Councilman Pollock, there is no proposed use. The developer is seeking a higher density development, more dwellings per acreage than what is currently allowed in the R16 zoning district. So, again, to add on what the first gentleman here tonight for the public hearing, there will be comments from NCDOT given back to staff. We will be able to report those findings back to the board at the appropriate time. But again, with regards to our comprehensive land use plan, it does recommend medium density development for the area. However, sites like this where infill development is a potential in areas where there's water and sewer available, higher densities are encouraged and recommended for the area. But so far as any specific use for the area at this point in time, the application is just for a conventional rezoning. No plans at this time have been submitted.
Mr. Tom?
Yes, sir.
Just one more time. Do you mind saying the zoning north, south, east, and west?
Yes, sir. So the zoning to the north is residential 12 and residential 16. Zoning to the south is residential 16. To the east, residential 16. And to the west, residential 16.
Thank you.
So again, those lots, just for clarification, have to be a minimum of 16,000 square feet for development to be for single-family development to occur there.
Does anyone else wish to speak for or against this rezoning? Yes, ma'am.
I live right back up to that property there. Last 33 years, very hard to deal with that family that doesn't keep that yard clean. We started out R20 33 years ago. We were county, we went to city in 6 months. We went to R16 because a neighbor had built onto their house for their mother to take care of them and realized it was a little bit closer, so we went to R16. We don't want to go to R12, make it any smaller. We don't want to have apartments behind us. We don't want it too close together. We like it family oriented there, but keep it open. But we just like to see that land taken better care of.
Ma'am, did you give us your name?
I did, Barbara Swisher.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward. Okay, yes, sir.
One last comment for the council and the public as well. If there were any multifamily developments proposed in the future, it would require a special use permit in addition to a rezoning request. So that is another approval method that we'll have to go through in order for multifamily to be considered for this site in the future.
Did everyone understand what he just said? I want to make sure you heard him. Okay, so there's any future multifamily process construction would require another rezoning hearing. If you have something to say, ma'am, come forward.
I just want clarification.
State your name, please.
I am Beulah Frazier. I live at 102 Country Day Road, and I've been there soon will be 18 years. By multifamily, are you specifying apartment housing? That's my question.
It could be.
It could be.
What else could it be?
It could be townhouses. It could be condominiums.
I see. Okay.
Whatever.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else desiring to speak on this? Yes, sir. Come forward, please. State your name, sir.
Jin Choi. I live right across the John. My house is the second house in front of that Paytown Road. And I speak against this zoning change because we have a pretty good traffic situation, and there is the Country Day School, and also there is another school on the Country Day School on also Paytown Road. So it's a school zone, and also there's individual homes around alongside the road. So if apartment complex built, then it's going to be very different, and then we have a big trouble of traffic and safety issues.
Sir. All right, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Anyone else wishing to speak on rezoning Z622? If not, we'll close the public hearing on this item. As I said before, the Planning Commission will meet next Monday, and anyone wishing to speak to the Planning Commission who will make a recommendation to the council, I suggest you go there. Okay, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, that Planning Commission meeting will be on the 30th of May, so not next Monday, but the Monday thereafter. I stand corrected. Mayor, you're exactly right. Thank you, Ms. Smith. So you're exactly right. Next Monday will be the Planning Commission meeting right here in the City Hall chambers. Mayor, we'll move forward to the next zoning. Sorry.
Can I get your phone?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, are we gonna meet in these chambers for our meeting? I wanted to make sure that they
We'll be
complete with their
meeting
schedule.
in the morning. We'll be meeting in the evening.
Okay.
So the next change of zone request we have is from Duke Energy Progress. The property is located on the south side of Thoroughfare Road between Sandy Lane Road and Central Heights Road. The subject property is currently occupied by an electrical utility substation owned and operated by the applicant. The applicant requests to rezone the property from residential 20A to general industry I2. The applicant desires a change of zone since the current residential zoning classification is not appropriate for the site. If rezoned, the applicant will be required to meet the regulations of general industry zoning district I2 for future development purposes. If you see the property on the screen there off Thoroughfare Road, consisting of approximately 36.71 acres. Surrounding property to the north is residential R20A, residential manufactured. To the south, residential 20A and industrial business park. To the east, residential 20A, residential manufactured, and west, industrial business park. The land use plan recommends industrial development for the property. Engineering the subject property is not located in a special flood hazard area. City water and sewer utilities are not available to serve the property. Again, the Planning Commission will have a recommendation for the City Council at the next regularly scheduled meeting on June the 6th. Here is the current zoning map on the property in red, adjacent to the industrial business park. Our comprehensive land use plan shows it as industrial.
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah.
Okay. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing for Z722. If anyone would like to come forward and speak for or against, please do so. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. If not, we'll close this public hearing for Z722 and move to the next item.
All righty. Mayor, lastly, our last change of zone for tonight is by Alpha 13 LLC, seeking a zoning change from R16 to R12 conditional zoning. The property is located on the south side of West New Hope Road between Somerville Lane and Twin Oaks Place. There are 3 separate parcels associated with the change of zone request. Currently, the subject properties are vacant and are utilized as agricultural farmlands. The total area will consist of 19.5 acres. Surrounding property to the north is R16, to the south is R16, to the east R16, and to the west R12 and R16. The applicant requests to rezone the subject properties from residential 16 to residential 12 conditional zoning, limiting the property or the use of the property to a 62-lot residential clustered subdivision. The applicant has submitted a conceptual site plan to that effect. If rezoned, the applicant will be required to combine the 3 lots into one, meeting the development design standards of the residential 12 zoning district. Separate site and construction plan approval will be required. And again, according to the city's UDO, developer may reduce the minimum lot size, width, and setbacks up to 40% from the specifications of the prevailing zoning district, utilizing the clustered subdivision ordinance. Council may require larger lot sizes if, in the opinion of City Council, smaller lot sizes would be incompatible with adjoining developments. 20% of the total project area shall be reserved as commonly held open space. The applicant has reserved 4.05 acres of the site as open. Turning the page, city water and sewer are available to serve the property. The applicant will be required to petition for annexation into Goldsboro city limits since the site is within 1,000 feet of city utilities. The property is not located within a special flood hazard area. Stormwater calculation and drainage plans shall be approved by city engineer before construction permits are issued. All streets shall meet city standards. All utilities shall be installed underground, and curb and gutter shall be required. Sidewalks will be required as well, providing for a safe and convenient system for pedestrian access to all dwelling units. In addition, external sidewalks are required along any adjacent public or private street. Again, utilities will be underground. There's a residential landscaping component associated with the development. Each lot, open space, recreational areas, and stormwater retention ponds above private public streets must have 1 large tree for every 40 feet of street frontage, or 2 small trees for every 30 feet of lot frontage. The land use recommendation recommends medium density residential development. However, in areas where city water and sewer are available to serve the property, the city's comprehensive land use plan recommends that higher density should be allowed and encouraged. Again, the Planning Commission will have a recommendation for the council at their regularly scheduled meeting on the 6th of June. Comprehensive land use plan, as you see, recommend medium density residential. And that is all of our public hearings. Council, do you have questions?
I have a question on that. Could you go back?
Yes, sir.
I'm having a little bit of trouble getting a conception of where this piece of property actually is. It shows New Hope Road and Twin Oaks Road, but it gives the location as West Thoroughfare Road. Where's Thoroughfare Road in conjunction to where that is?
Next one.
Councilman, they got Thoroughfare Road. I don't see Thoroughfare. I just know it's south side of West New Hope Road between Somerville Lane and Twin Oaks Place. So basically, if the first piece of property that we were looking at was off of Pate Town Road, if you go north along Pate Town Road before you reach Wayne Christian School on your left, there's a cutoff there off of New Hope Road. So you take New Hope there to the east, and as you forward going northward there, you'll see Somerville subdivision on your right.
Yeah, I know where you're at.
Directly
I know where
beside.
that is, but why does it give the location as Thoroughfare Road?
That was just one of our oversights.
Just a question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Couldn't even see it from here, but you're right. We will correct that. That needs to be on another slide, not this slide. Thank you.
I don't pay attention to a whole lot of things sometimes, but I saw that.
Very good. Appreciate you pointing it out. Any other questions from council?
This is a public hearing for Z822 Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Speak for or against. Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening, Mayor, members of the commission. My name is Zach Anderson. I'm with Alpha 13, here to seek a rezoning from R16 to R12 conditional use district that's consistent with the Somerville neighborhood directly to the west there. We'll have slightly larger lot sizes than the Somerville neighborhood. And our company likes to come in with conditional use plans so that we can set in stone what the neighborhood will look like from the get-go and work with the town and the citizens to have a community that works for everyone. We're filing under the UDO allowed cluster subdivision of that zoning district, so we're setting aside open space for the residents to use as a shared open space in exchange for smaller lot size. A part of that zoning ordinance also says that when we're adjacent to a neighborhood with larger lot sizes, we have to have larger lot sizes too, kind of average between the bigger lot neighborhood and our neighborhood. So we've had that along the neighborhood to the south and then the neighborhood to the north, where we've actually got a stream. There's quite a big buffer there already. We'll have landscape buffers consistent with the ordinance that will separate the neighborhoods, and we think this is just a great opportunity to bring more houses to this community where, like many other in North Carolina, we're very constrained on housing supply. So we think this moves us all in the right direction.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Alpha 13 representative?
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson? Sir, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
Hey, Mayor, Council. David Klein. I'm over there on Somerville Lane.
Klein?
Yes. C-L-I-N-E. Over there on the Somerville Lane there. Right now against it, but could be swayed one way or the other. Right now, depending on how these houses are going to get laid out, especially on that western side, depending on how they elevate or change the elevation of the field, you could be looking at a water runoff issue. Everything is on basically the eastern side of Somerville Lane there, or the western border of what's depicted on that chart. If it rains pretty good, we'll have basically an area where their back lawns are basically underwater for an extended period of time. So if you're looking at adding additional houses there on the western side of that proposed lot there, you could be disturbing that to where now it's funneling down. You have a pool. It's a bigger issue. So I'd be interested in seeing what impacts it's going to have on the water runoff issue over there.
They do have drainage issues in Musgrave Manor, don't they?
There are drains there, but they still get backed up.
I mean, they have issues.
Yes.
At times, yes. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, I'll close this public hearing. Again, I want to remind those that have come here tonight that we did not take any action or will not take any action tonight, and you're invited to attend the Planning Commission meeting next Monday morning. Okay, this time if we have any Planning Commissioners, members present, you can be excused if you like. Thank you for your work. Okay, we have one other public hearing on the ratification of an agreement for the development of an industrial park. The city manager will speak to that.
Yes, sir. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 158 Tech 7.1, staff is requesting the council ratify the actions of City Council at their meeting on June 5th, 2017, and approve the agreement with Wayne County Development Alliance and Wayne County. The agreement was entered into without the proper notice and resolution requirements being met. This is located at 400 Paytown Road. The City of Goldsboro has agreed to design and install necessary water and sewer lines and appurtenances to service the property at its cost, minus any grants that may be obtained for this purpose. The estimated cost for Phase 1 is $485,000, which will be appropriated from the utility fund. The city agrees not to annex the property In exchange for that agreement, the county agrees to share equally with the city the general county ad valorem taxes on the real property collected. It is recommended the council adopt the attached resolution ratifying the actions taken by council on June 5th, 2017, and approve the agreement with the Wayne County Development Alliance in Wayne County.
Any questions, comments? You need a vote?
You to open the public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Okay, this is a public hearing for ZA 22, excuse me, a public hearing on the ratification of an agreement for the development of industrial park. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the agreement, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries. At this time, we're going to open up the meeting for public comment. And individuals who wish to speak, please come forward at the time I open it officially. And remember that you will have 3 minutes to speak. I appreciate your cooperation in that regard. So those wishing to speak, come forward. And when you come forward, please state your name.
My name is Georgia Dees, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Wayne County. And I had not planned to speak tonight, but I did want to address some of the discussion that was had at your work session earlier this evening about the funding of nonprofits. There's been a lot of good discussion, and the fact that you guys are thinking about it, thinking seriously and deeply about it, I appreciate that. We are a nonprofit that has been funded for many years, partly by the city, and again requested information or funding this year as well. We asked for an increase this year actually because of our unanticipated necessity to relocate. And we have found a new place. I'm excited to say we started moving this weekend. We will be located at 123 North Center Street. It was formerly First Citizens Bank, and then most recently Artisans Village. But we've been working with the landlord and the city to get everything done that needs to be done for us to actually start operating out of there. The Arts Council has been an integral part of downtown for a long time. You may not know this, but our Arts Council is the oldest local arts council in the state. And we want to continue and we want to grow, and I think I think this move is just opening up a whole new chapter for us to serve even more populations than we have been able to in the past. I wanted to say that the goals that the city has, we align so well with most of those. Safe and secure community. We provide a safe and secure place for people of all ages to get together and create or celebrate music, art, whatever. And we're proud to be able to do that. The parents can leave their kids there for summer camp and know they're going to be taken care of and learn something. Strong and diverse economy. We are one organization that actually you'll get a return on your investment because people do come to our location from other places, from out of town, and then they're going to spend money in our restaurants and then lodging and that kind of thing. So we do give back economically to the city and the county. We just completed, the board and staff and a few other people in the community just completed a 5-week diversity, equity, and inclusion training. We plan to do more with that over the coming year, but that's one of our goals, is to get our board and our audiences more diverse. It already is. We see people from the age of 4 or 5 to people in their 90s on a regular basis. And exceptional quality of life. Well, a lot of people that move to new locations, arts is one of the things that they're looking for, a good arts program. And then also racial and cultural diversity. We are an organization that has worked hard to bring the community together. And so if you don't care for art, I understand.
Hey, I'm not saying I don't care for it. I just said it's not my thing.
I get it, it's not your thing. And other people tell us that as well. But for some little kids and for some people, art is as important to them as playing basketball or being on the swim team. So we just, we try to support other organizations too, as well.
You know how people different people attract. My wife is a singer, and I could care. She does her thing and I do mine, and I guarantee you, she'd hate to know that I said anything against the arts.
Well, she's gonna know.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
And she's probably in the majority, believe me.
Next person, speaker.
Hi, my name is Diane Belmont. I am the secretary on the Arts Council, and as a board member. So I'm going to get started. Please forgive my appearance. I was working in the yard after work when I learned that a council member was very vocal in your work session earlier about his opinion that the city funding the arts is not important. I quickly changed out of my yard clothes, but the monsoon caught me as I was walking in. I have not had long to prepare my thoughts, but I am here to remind the council why it is important and essential for the city to support the Arts Council. Not only does the Arts Council meet the 4 strategic areas, which Georgia talked about, but it also has benefits for the kids. It assists kids with language, motor skills, visual learning development. Also, young people who participate in the arts are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement later on. That's only going to help our educational system here in the Wayne County. Also, with health, art releases serotonin. It enhances brain function. Participating in art also helps patients recover quickly from traumatic events. We offer that. It also increases emotional intelligence. I think we all could have some more emotional intelligence in our community. Supports travel and tourism by bringing in our out-of-town visitors and artists, especially for our juried art show, which brings over 100 pieces from all over the U.S. to our community. Art opens dialogue among diverse groups by creating safe spaces for engagement, thus allowing new relationships to take root. Art encourages the development of creativity, innovation, collaboration, critical thinking, communication, motivation, and self-confidence. The Arts Council strives to be a place where all may find a sense of belonging and community. We are a hub for networking artist professionals. We are a training ground for future artists. We are a safe space for artist expression and experimentation. What we are not is a business. We are a nonprofit and can only survive by the generosity of our community and our partners. It is my hope and my challenge to you as leaders of the community that you will set a good example and support an institution that is here to help our diverse community to thrive and have that exceptional quality of life.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
30 seconds, sir.
Listen, I can't disagree with what you said. And like I say, I'm not anti-art. It's just not my thing. I appreciate those who it is. I really do.
But you do benefit from art, sir.
Oh,
and
I'm
we
not
want
saying
to
I
provide
don't.
art to our community.
I never said
we
I
need
didn't
the
benefit
support
from it. But again, we have an opinion. You're entitled to yours. I'm entitled to mine.
Thank
and
you
they
for your
aren't
time,
that far
folks.
apart, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone, and first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your service. My name is Nancy Fallon, and I'm here to speak about the conditions that we are going through as far as the sanitation department. Now, the recycling and the regular garbage pickups on Friday in my subdivision, that's the pickup days. Now, they pick up 99% of the time on schedule. Now, the small limb truck and what I call the suction truck, those trucks are not on schedule, and they have not been on schedule since mid-November of 1921. So, of 2021. And as of now, like we didn't have pickups from November until January of 2022 of this year, and I have to call there every time the day before it's pickup time for the small limb truck and the suction truck to find out if it's gonna be coming in to our subdivision. And I'm being told that they're backlogged. This affects all of us in the city of Goldsboro to ride around and see debris all over the street and things of that nature. And I'm wondering if something can be done about that. Now I have 3 homes bordering the back of my home, 3 ranch-style homes. I don't have any trees, but I have to clean up all of the debris that comes into my yard, which I know goes along with my home. I don't mind doing that, but when it's time for them to pick up, I expect for them to pick up. Now I'm being told that they're short-handed, the trucks are broken down, and I believe it because they have these guys working in poor conditions. When I first moved in that house 15 years ago, those guys had a lift on the back of those trucks where that they could conveniently and better serve us by, getting rid of the debris and things of that nature. Now, they don't have a lift and they're having to lift big containers up 4.5 feet to get onto the truck. That's not right. We need to do something to help our people in this city. And one of the things we need to start doing is riding around, and I'm sure if all of you live in Wayne County, you know that this debris is out there because they're not picking it up, because they don't have the manpower. And I ask that you please, can I get someone to go down and speak to management there? I've spoken to Mr. Monroe several times, and I can't even get my stress off because he's so nice when I call. I'm really upset about this because I like a nice front in front of my house, and I'm getting to the point now, I call ahead of time. I don't even put my debris out there if he tells me they're backlogged. But I got a bunch of mess that needs to go out, and we need to know when exactly these people are going to be picking up our debris. And like I said before, this is not just affecting me and the people in Pill Hill, this affects this whole city. And I just want to bring attention, and I hope that you are on my side as far as this. If you're not, I'm not understanding you, because we need to get this stuff picked up.
Yes, ma'am. And let me just say that I believe we have 3 suction trucks, is that correct? Leaf pickup trucks?
I'd have to get the exact number.
I believe that's right. I was at Public Works just last Thursday. Walked around in the yard and talked to the director there. And there are equipment pieces that are down. They're waiting on repairs for one of the vehicles that the trailer that pulls behind it and has the suction motor on it. It had problems with both the engine of the vehicle as well as the engine of the vacuum as well. So we are very, very aware of the situation. I apologize for the inconvenience that people are having. I have received complaints myself. In fact, just before we broke for, or when we did break for the work session, I spoke to the Public Works Director about this, and he is very, very aware of the situation, ma'am.
Yeah, well, I would just like to just add that, maybe we need to get more trucks out on the road, that we need to invest, they need more equipment to work with. And thank you so much for your attention. I certainly appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Doug McGrath. I'm here tonight to talk about NC Freedom Fest. As was noted earlier, this Saturday is Armed Forces Day, and NC Freedom Fest is a military appreciation festival that pulls together lots of folks from the community, lots of nonprofits, the city of Goldsboro, and Seymour Johnson. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind everybody we're 5 days out from that event, which will bring a lot of traffic downtown Goldsboro. We have free amenities all day long, actually starting Friday night and blending into Saturday. So we'll have a car and bike show, we'll have craft vendors, we'll have a family inclusive area, we have food trucks, we have a kids zone, free to the public, a face painting, free to the public. The Mount Olive Pickle Train will be here, free to the public, and live music that will go from 4 to 9. So I just encourage everyone to come out. This is our opportunity to say thank you to all the folks that afford us our freedoms. We don't take it for granted. So we appreciate the support from the city and just encourage everybody to come out Saturday.
Thank you, sir. And I want to pay especially tribute to you because this Freedom Fest, while it's not a one-man person, you are the person that's driving it. And You did so last year at the inaugural Freedom Fest, and I commend you on your efforts to do so again this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
Good job.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Come forward, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Douglas Horn. I am the Vice President of the Triangle Chapter of the Goldsboro Dillard Alumni and Friends Association. I am here because we were trying to have a fundraising event on Memorial Day weekend, that Saturday, over on James Street, 312, 314, 316, commonly known as the Old Elks Lodge. We've learned that the building has a pending inspection, which puts the usage of the building in doubt. So we have pivoted. We originally had always planned to have a tent in the yard and do most of our activities outside. So now we've pivoted to wanting to do everything outside. And so I contacted the planning office. I spoke with Mr. Blanchard, and he originally told me that I only needed to get a fire permit for the tent. But then he came back and told me that the event is classified as a special use and would need a permit approved by this body. And when I asked him what made it special use, he kind of gave me the example that, well, since it's not a family affair and there are other people going to be there, that makes it a special use permit. And on Memorial Day weekend, there are dozens of events attended by more than family members. So I'm here to ask and to understand why our event is classified as special use and would need this permit.
Sir, I'm going to say to you, based on my very limited knowledge of the situation, our planning director is not here now, but yes, okay, our planning director is here. Oh, yes, okay. Mr. Talton, would you like to speak to that?
Mayor, that the information that was given to me was that, again, Dillard alumni had approached city officials for having the outside event there at 312 South James Street, and the gentleman was correct. The site was originally approved by this board for a place of entertainment with ABC permits. At this time, the facility that was approved for use has not, the building inspection requirements have not been satisfied, so the building cannot be used. So again, the gentleman spoke of using the outside yard for outside events as well. Our ordinance basically states, when we renewed the ordinance back in June of 21, one of the complaints addressed was when, in particular, when we had outside events, say for example a church revival. These events were close to residential communities, and we received a lot of complaints from the communities about the events and how we need to address them in the future. So as part of our ordinance, the ordinance was updated to reflect outside events involving social, cultural, political, religious events. Any type of event such as that would need to go before City Council and obtain a special use permit. So some of the requirements that come into play with regards to this special use permit are that the use cannot be within a residential zoning district, and it also, if it's within another district, for example, this particular site is located in the central business district, it must be 500 feet from any residentially zoned or developed property. And it was communicated, Mr. Blanchard, he is on our staff, and I can't provide any anything certain as to what was discussed between him and this gentleman. Yes, sir, Mr. Horn. But I can say that that it has been communicated to other people who communicated the interest in doing so, that a special use permit would be required. And unfortunately, we don't have time in order to schedule that special use permit before this event takes place. And even if we did, one of the constraints would be meeting that residential requirement of 500 feet, because there are houses 2 or 3 doors down from this from the site. Now keep in mind, there was a special use permit that was issued for the facility, place of entertainment for such as weddings, showers, dance, banquet halls, things like that. But that was for inside of the facility. This particular site was never approved for any events outside. So keep that in mind. But again, it's unfortunate. Unfortunately, we're just the messenger here, and I wish things could be different to help deal with alumni, but that's the situation at hand. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Chuck, the city-owned property that's in between Spruce and Chestnut, I guess that would be south of Well Traveled. In theory, could that work?
It could.
I know I'm putting you on the spot now.
Sure. I'm just not familiar with the zoning right now. I don't know what that zoning would be. I would guesstimate it's in the central business zoning district. So that is an area that could be considered.
You're talking about where we're holding Freedom Fest?
Yeah. It's within a block of where you're hoping all the events.
Absolutely. Again, it's city-owned property. I think it's something that city officials would need to have a discussion with members of Dill alumni, Mr. Horn, and to see if something can be worked out to help the situation.
Can we take a look at that and get back to Mr. Horn shortly?
Absolutely. Mr. Horn, when was the projected date? Saturday and Memorial Day weekend. We can look into it and give it our best shot to see what we can come up with. No guarantees, of course. We'll work through the manager's office and in our office and see what we can come up with.
Where do they plan on giving away the food, sir? Do you know where that is? You familiar with the $10,000 the council approved for the food giveaway?
Oh, that's at the H.B. Brown Hall location on Cotton Street.
Okay. There's 2 locations, 2 giveaways, or just one?
That event is at headquarters there. This was a fundraising event for 2 of the outside Goldsboro chapters, the Raleigh and the Charlotte chapter were hosting this event as a fundraiser to the main organization.
Okay. So you feel the field will be available potentially at that time? You're gonna have your parade downtown. It'll be after that, or what's the time?
Yes, this event would have started at noon.
Okay.
Till 4 p.m. in the downtown area.
Okay. Take a look at it. I don't know if the council wants to approve it based on that understanding or not, but.
We're open to modifications. We're trying to host the event.
How many people, sir? How many people? Do you have any idea how many people would be at this event?
At any one time, we would estimate anywhere between 50 and 100.
Okay. Does that give you enough information?
It does to me. Another advantage to that is that it's on your parade route. I believe it's going to be on the parade route as well. That's my suggestion based on the incredibly limited amount of information.
I'd say let's try to work with them and see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let us let the manager know what is going on, and Mr. Allen, keep us informed as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, sir. We're working to try to resolve the issue.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Anyone else wishing to speak, please come forward.
How y'all doing, sir?
Hello.
I'm Henry Battle, owner, operator of the Black Elks Lodge, 312, 314, 316, South James. 311, 401, Fussell. 709A, 709B, George. 902, 905, North Carolina. 1302, 1304 North George. I say that to say this. Those are the properties that I pay taxes on annually. That means each and every year. I'm looking at this as taxation with no representation. This gentleman just got up here to speak about the Elks Lodge and what we want to have there. Outside with a tent set up in the parking lot, which stretches it like 210 feet this way, 100 feet that way. Plenty enough room. Why is it? I don't understand. It's such an issue with that Black Elks Lodge. I don't understand it. I really don't. But what I would like to do, I would like for this council to take a look at how they just had an event at the public library back in February, Black History Month, matter of fact, February 24th. I don't know if y'all knew anything about this. It's supposed to have been a tribute to South James Street, the Black Wall Street. And for some reason, the Black Elks Lodge never came up. The only time it was mentioned was twice. And that was on the account of businesses, and they say the Elks Lodge was beside this business. That Black Elks Lodge been there since 1949. Now, what is the problem? I don't know. Mr. Towson, he's the only one that has an issue with this. We spoke with everyone else. Alan Anderson, everybody. Mr. Towson is the only one that has an issue with this. I don't understand it. I've been at this spot since 2006, 16 years, and what I would like to do is to bring a motion on this council, where anyone that come before this council and they looking for a special use permit or conditional use, as it used to be called, they need to go through the 16-year process that I had to go through. It took me from 2006 to 2013 to get through this council. Mr. Gurley sit up here last week, and he talking about the money that people put into the business and how he want to help the businesses. You could not imagine what I've been through trying to maintain this building for 16 years and not even be able to use it like I want to. It's just simply ridiculous. Simply ridiculous. And I just want y'all to know that. Don't make sense.
Sure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can I say something? I'll save it for my public. I'll save it for my comments, or I can say it now. I really would like the council to take a look at this situation. I don't know all the ramifications because I wasn't there, and some of the years I wasn't, probably not in North Carolina or working in North Carolina. But I think we owe it to this gentleman to revisit this situation. And I really would like to see that done, Mr. Talton or whoever is responsible, and give him some explanation and some closure. Tell him what, if he hasn't done what he's supposed to do, tell him what he's supposed to do. Let's help him get whatever he needs so that I will understand and he will understand and everybody else will understand why his dream and what he is wanting to do for this district, why it has not come to fruition.
Councilwoman Jones, I've not been intimately involved in I assume you're talking about the Elks Lodge building itself, is that correct?
Yes, it's off of James Street.
I know where it is.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that
yes.
I understood. Okay, so I believe that our planning department, our inspections department has been involved in this matter continuously, well, frequently in the last couple of 3 years. And the issue is that the building has never received a certificate of occupancy, and that's based on it did not meeting certain standards as set forth by our inspections department. So until you get a CO, certificate of occupancy, then you're not allowed to conduct any business or live in it or whatever the case may be. That goes for residential property as well as commercial property.
Well, has Mr. Battle been educated on what he needs to do?
I believe he has. I believe he has been, that those requirements have been discussed with him. I've been informed that they were discussed with him.
Well, I'm asking that we revisit this and make everything clear, sir. If we could do that, I would really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll make sure it's put in writing
Okay?
and get a copy to the council members.
Okay.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? If not, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move to the consent agenda. Previously, the consent agenda items were discussed with you, items I through L, that included let me get my notes here, for us to accept or reject an initial bid to authorize finance to advertise for an upset bid for 900 Marvin Street. So at this time, if you have no other questions about it, I'd like to have a motion to accept the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion second. Any further discussion? The clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Ham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Polak?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Councilman Broadway?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matthews?
Yes.
Councilman Gaylor?
Yes.
Councilman Aycock?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda items are received and accepted. We have no items requiring individual action. City manager's report.
Yes, sir. COVID update, Wayne County level community transmission remains low. However, I would emphasize that Governor Cooper ordered all U.S. and North Carolina flags at state facilities to be lowered to half staff until sunset today in memory of the 1 million American lives lost to COVID-19 and their loved ones left behind. And the city followed suit. That's why you see our flags at half mast the last few days. North Carolina Freedom Fest is going to be this weekend. Doug mentioned that the main events are on May 21st from 4 to 9 p.m. On Friday, there'll be Grub at the Hub with Soul Psychedelic playing. So we appreciate everyone who wants to attend those events. Memorial Day weekend, as you know, Dillard Goldsboro alumni and friends will have their parade and an event downtown. Also on Memorial Day weekend, the pools will be open and the Kiwanis train will be open. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Is Ms. Judith Bateman here? Okay, she's not here. This time I'm going to read the resolution expressing appreciation for services rendered by Judith Bateman as an employee of the City of Goldsboro for more than 9 years. So, whereas Judith Bateman retires on June 1st, 2022 as a laboratory supervisor with the Public Utilities Department for the City of Goldsboro with more than 9 years of service, and whereas Judith Bateman began her career on May 8, 2013 as a laboratory supervisor with the Public Utilities Department, and whereas Judith has proven herself to be a dedicated and efficient public servant who has gained the admiration and respect of her fellow workers and the citizens of the City of Goldsboro, and whereas the Mayor and City Council of the City of Goldsboro are desirous on behalf of themselves, city employees, and the citizens of Goldsboro of expressing to Judith Bateman their deep appreciation and gratitude for the service rendered by her to the city over the years. Now therefore be resolved by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Goldsboro, North Carolina, that we express to Judith our very best wishes for success, happiness, prosperity, and good health in her future endeavors. This resolution shall be incorporated in the official minutes of the City of Goldsboro and shall be in full force and effect from and after this 16th day of May 2022. I ask that the for a motion to adopt a resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please show by raise your hand. Okay, motion is adopted. At this time, we'll entertain any comments from the council members. I think I'll start with you, sir.
Just a reminder to everybody, tomorrow's election day. And if you're as fed up with commercials on TV as I am, please go and vote. And let's get this over with. Like I said, I don't think I've ever been as disgusted with advertising for political offices as much as I have this one. And I'm just ready, I think most of us are, for it to be over with.
Mr. Gator?
It's a wonderful time of year to be a citizen of Goldsboro and to be around Wayne County. Between Pickle Festival a couple weeks back, Touch a Truck this past weekend, Freedom Fest this coming weekend, and I'm only mentioning the ones that I'm throwing off the top of my head. It's a wonderful time of year. I encourage everyone to go out, be safe, enjoy themselves. Don't forget Memorial Day weekend, the pool's open back up. It's my favorite time of year, and I appreciate everybody's time and working together tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Matthews?
No comment, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to piggyback on what Councilman Getto said. I'm excited for the upcoming events that will be held in our great city this weekend, from the Freedom Fest to the Goldsboro Deal alumni. I also want to give a shout out to the future graduates of the schools that will be coming up before we meet again. I also want to work to see that Mr. Henry Battle, the owner of the Improved Benevolent Protective Order of the Elks, receives the representation and historic value that it deserves. As a Prince Hall Mason, I'm proud to say that that is a similar organization to what I'm a member of, and we're not to be acknowledged and recognized during the presentation at the library. It saddens me to hear that. I wasn't at that as well, and my lodge was erected, started in 1958. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those organizations, and it does need to be represented. And any way I can help, I want them to know that I'm here to help. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, I just, again, like everyone else, I want to thank Doug and your team for all the extra work you've done, and encourage everybody to go out for the Freedom Fest. It makes us look good with the Air Force too, believe me. So let's go out and encourage and support. That's all I have, sir.
Councilwoman Jones?
Well, I agree with everyone, what they've said about, coming out, but I do have some concerns about the being safe in our community. I have some concerns about the downtown break-ins and shootings, and I've spoken with city council, I've spoken with the city manager as well as the chief of police, and looking into some type of citizens policing, where we would use some policemen that are retired, that would like to come back and police, downtown, and help us cut down some of that crime down there. Be safe as you celebrate this weekend, and to piggyback off City Council Taj, I would like to apologize for the lack of representation that Mr. Battle received. We would do a better job, sir. And thank you for what you've done. Thank you for being a property owner and setting an example. And I think that's just about it.
Thank you. Tonight I'm going to read my comments because they're a little bit longer than normal. I want to speak about the increase in violent crimes that we have seen here in Goldsboro this year. As you may be aware, Goldsboro had its 9th shooting incident this past week. That is unfortunate. Recently, our annual homicide and violent crime statistics have gone down. If there's any good news to speak of, is that none of these shootings were racially motivated. These are not random shootings. Evidence supports the fact that several of these shootings were gang-related. Additionally, most of the individuals involved, either the shooter or the victim, knew each other. Also, I want to remind our residents that our police department is working with the federal ATF, the state SBI, and Wayne County Sheriff's Department in trying to be proactive in ridding our city of this violent criminal element. Our police department is currently 32 uniformed officers short. Obviously, that shortage impacts their ability to provide the level of community patrols, 911 call response time, and other services to you. But you can be sure that Chief West and his staff are diligently trying to fill those vacancies. Additionally, I want to appeal to our residents that you have a responsibility in helping us to rid our city of the violent criminal element. As in the recent shootings and others in the past, certain victims and or witnesses have refused to cooperate with the investigation of those crimes. You must take some responsibility in helping our law enforcement protect you. I sincerely request that you cooperate with investigating personnel when you have information regarding a crime, or call when you have information of a pending criminal action. Your support and involvement is critical in improving our security and your own security. If you would like to submit information anonymously, you can call or text Crime Stoppers at 919-735-2255 or submit a tip at pttips.com. And finally, I want to take a moment to address the horrific shooting that took place this weekend in Buffalo, New York. Our country is going through the most perilous period in my lifetime. War, pandemic, inflation, and racial strife combine to try our patience and test the will to face each day. Our nation, our state, and our city have made great strides in being a better place to live, raise our children, and work and prosper than our earlier generations. I pray that we will not lose the progress gained that so many have sacrificed for, and I pray for the families of the victims whose lives were ended by a misguided and hate-minded individual. I also pray for our city and the people that reside herein, that we never have to go through a similar event. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are no further business, we'll adjourn the meeting. Adjourn.